There are 0 instances of men pretending to be trans women in order to access these vulnerable women's spaces.
There are no consistent examples of trans women harming cis women.
Well, that sounds like someone consistently harming women to me.
Trans women are not men.
What's the difference between trans women and men that is observable enough that the gym employees can make sure that they allow trans women in, but don't allow men in?
I wanted to ask whether there's some kind of line that can be drawn to account for the fact that there are going to be men that come to my gym, say they are a trans woman, just to get into my gym and challenge that. Because there are a ton of men in these comments saying I'm going to put on...
Yeah, if she's not willing to take this risk, that's up to her. Congratulations on finding the tiniest inconsistency, which can very easily be explained. The stats reflect that men who are assholes and will be mean to women in the gym aren't going to dress up as women. Okay. What we're doing is building up to the but. All these bad things have happened to you at the hands of men, but...
As a trans woman, this is fine. Believe it or not, everyone in the comments, trans women are very respectful and are happy to support women's spaces, even if we are not involved.
Why am I dancing with that trans person?
Yeah, we'll look at the jammidodger thing, because I don't know how long it's going to take. It might take a short while. They're talking about the women's only gym banning trans women. So that was that Natalee Barnett, is that her name? Yeah, Natalee Barnett, Girls Spot. So, as you can see, this is Natalee Barnett's Twitter. These posts are protected. The inference is that this person probably was not treated very well for changing her mind on this this whole thing about wanting it to be biological women only. We've still got this female-only gym. There's nothing you cannot do. So very much committed now to it being female-only, which apparently wasn't always the case. We'll go further into that. So I wanted to look at a few things just before I watched the jammidodger video, because I'm going to be honest. I don't trust anything the jammidodger or his partner says. I'd rather make sure I have some information for myself before I go straight in. I don't want to be gaslit by anyone. I've got a couple of articles just to look at very quickly. We've got Cosmopolitan. A fitness influencer's new gym is facing backlash for excluding trans women. Trans exclusionary definitions of gender only reinforce narrow ideals of womanhood. Well, yikes. The fitness influencer Natalee Barnett has come under fire for the trans exclusionary stance of her new women's only gym. I mean, you can say it's a trans exclusionary stance. Just one way of putting it, really. Named the Girls Spot, located in Wandsworth, the gym is due to open in spring 2025. For context, Barnett spent 4 years fundraising, generating over $22,900 via GoFundMe. In a tweet, she shared a trans-inclusive message, implied that her forthcoming gym would welcome trans women. Writing, respectfully, if you have a problem with trans women attending my gym, you can find another gym to train at. Okay, so that is a fairly heavy implication, for sure. I've discussed this several times before. Trans women are women, also a minority that need to be protected. Please keep your transphobia away. However, over the weekend, Barnett since shared a post on X which said the gym would be for biological women only. The Girls Spot operates the female-only gym for biological women, tackling harassment, sexual assault, violence that women face inside the gym. The tweet circling was made 4 years ago, and I was in the very early stages of creating the concept. So she changed her mind. You are, in fact, allowed to change your mind on things. That is perfectly fine. Is jammidodger from the UK? Yes, he is. Significant backlash. Allies speaking up. Listen, don't do this. If you're an ally, just stop. You're not helping trans people by giving this person crap for changing her stance on something. Just so we're clear. Harassing someone because they've changed their stance, really not okay. Doesn't matter. If they become more pro-trans, should be doing it. If they become less pro-trans, shouldn't be doing it. Barnett since shared a video that decision was not made lightly, but the gym would be operating as a single-sex space that would not be trans-inclusive. Sad to see a gym committed to inclusivity fall into the trap of excluding trans... What does this mean? Fall into the trap of excluding trans women. Well, I mean... Well, I guess we'll get onto it. Maybe I'll just read the articles first, but it's very difficult to include trans women without including men because, and like no doubt, extremely painful for trans women to see their validity as women called into question. Well, you have to remember what sex you are ultimately. You have to remember, like, if we're going to include trans women, that's going to have to be on the basis of gender identity. Because if you do it based on whether you pass or not, that's going to be a whole other problem. You're going to have a whole other controversy at one point in your life. So this is kind of heading that off, and that's fine. Like, if you're going to say trans women are welcome at this gym, how do you decide which males to include? Because you are including males. Let's be real. Let's be honest. Trans women are male sex. That, in fact, still exists. If we're to say that you're going to include some males, then it becomes a question of, well, which males? You do it based on gender identity because that's apparently how trans is defined. Then how do you show someone's gender identity? If a man who looks like a man comes in saying, well, I've only just started my transition. I very much identify as a woman. I'd like to use this gym. How do you justify turning that person away? Bearing in mind, you actually don't know if any of the things they're saying is true. So how do you make this like consistent? It's very difficult to have like a policy on entrance that relies on someone's like gender identity because you can't show your gender identity. So yeah, I'm really not sure why. Like this is, I guess the reporter's own bias coming into question. It's important to remember that trans women are in need of safe spaces with other women. They're not a threat to the safety of women's only spaces. While any trans woman could be a threat. Got statistics about sexual assault, blah, 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 blah. 4 times more likely to be the victim. Is that mostly like trans sex workers, or is there more to that? Listen, this is a bad thing, but that doesn't mean that a women's only gym therefore needs to cater to these people. Because like I said, it's not very easy to cater to a group where the through line is they all have a gender identity that's different from what they're born as. Like, it's a very difficult thing. It's easier to go with, like, sex. And there probably will be the odd person who is a male person who ends up able to access it. But that kind of person will be passing so well that they're not going to be causing any kind of undue concern anyway. And we're kind of ignoring, like, women might feel like they don't want to get changed in front of males. Like, how do you kind of square that? Like, are we going to mention any of that in here? Like, this is very ideologically fueled, this whole thing. Barnett's gym policy is just one small piece in a much broader picture of anti-trans sentiment and trans misogyny. I don't think it's fair to call this trans misogynist, anti-trans sentiment. We don't even mention, like, the video, like, why it is they're doing that. We don't know how much of it is because it would be impossible to, like, keep men out. Like, if it's a no men space, how do you keep men out when you're having to include males? You know what I mean? So even if you're to say that anyone that identifies as a woman is a woman now, you're still not going to stop people that don't identify as women from coming in because all they have to do is say that they do. And how do you police which ones actually identify as women, which don't? It's impossible. And we want to talk about falling into traps, like policing of trans inclusion of sport, blah, 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 protecting biological women. Well, I mean, if a male is in female sports, bearing in mind males are generally bigger and stronger, they might cause harm to women. That's just how it is. And it feels like, once again, we're ignoring any of the real issues. When we fall into the trap of defining women in strictly biological terms, we harm all women. How? Reinforcing restrictive definitions of womanhood. What is this person talking about? Encouraging greater scrutiny of gender norms. Well, I mean, I don't see how. Yeah, so this article is, I don't know who this person is. This is very captured. We've got the Daily Mail next. So listen, we've got both sides of the equation. Fitness influencer Natalee Barnett attacked online for refusing to allow trans women in a female-only gym after U-turn, saying, of course, they are welcome, which, bear in mind, was 2021, a long time ago. So a lot of time to change your mind, for sure. And to me, that's understandable. Not on about that kind of trap. Yeah, of course. The founder of a female-only gym has become the center of social media storm after saying a workout space won't allow transgender women entry. Fitness influencer and model Natalee Barnett, 25, defies the idea behind the Girl Spot Gym, which is due to open soon in Wandsworth, South London, after experiencing gym-based sexual harassment at the hands of men. Yeah, I mean, you're only going to increase the risk of this happening if you allow trans women in. Because like I said, how do you tell who is a trans woman and who isn't? Two male people come to you, both saying that they identify as female, but only one of them doesn't. One of them does. How do you tell which is which? You kind of can't. And Barnett, who boasts a combined 2.5 million followers on social media, first started raising funds for the space. She indicated it would be open to trans women. 4 years later, backtracked on that, so we've seen this already. Since the entrepreneur has been subject to vile abuse and branded transphobic, others said she might face legal action. Yeah, I don't think calling this person transphobic is fair at all, personally. I don't see trans women as trans women. I see trans women and women. So this was before her backtrack. Like, people change their mind again. Others have branded the plan unfeasible, claiming that Barnett would have to subject women to genital checks. Like, well, how are you going to say this and then ignore the idea that you just let anyone in who identifies? Like, I don't know. Or as transgender broadcaster India Willoughby told The Telegraph, undie inspections for women who look trans. Well, I don't know. What do you do when someone says they think they're a woman but they're not? It's going to be difficult to enforce either way. Spend a great deal of time and money seeking legal advice. It was absolutely not a choice made lightly or out of exclusion or malice, rather out of my commitment to ensuring a space where women who have experienced trauma, harassment, discomfort in co-ed gyms can feel at ease. Yeah, you're only increasing the likelihood of this happening to someone if you allow transgender women. Because again, how do you choose which women are trans and which aren't? How do you tell someone who tells you they're a woman that actually no, you're not a woman? Because you're going to have to do that. And honestly, like anything to do with like a female only versus woman only kind of thing, you're going to get shit from both sides, irrespective of what you do, unfortunately. Someone's going to have a problem with it. Barnett previously told Female how a negative experience at the gym led to the development of her business idea. And again, how many people are even going to take this into consideration? Or they'll be like, oh, well, it's terrible this happened, but you can't exclude trans women, which isn't, that's pretending to acknowledge something. That's not actually acknowledging anything, in my opinion. I have a feeling we're going to be hearing that, but we're going to watch the video soon. The staring, mansplaining, being touched, etc. Women deserve to be in the gym as much as any other person. Yeah, again, like, if you want all of this to go away, the only way to ensure that is to be female only. Also experience sexual assault, Jesus Christ. It doesn't feel good knowing that someone like this gets, like, harassed for enforcing something like this. Like, if she's gone through sexual assault in a gym, like, Jesus Christ. Like, pick your targets a bit better if you're that desperate to shit on someone on Twitter for being transphobic. You know what I mean? This is nasty. The influencer recalled heading out for a workout at a regular time, 9 p.m. Recognized a male gym goer. Touched me inappropriately. Yikes. Crazy. Crazy. And these are... My DMs are flooded with positivity. I can't tell if this is recent or not. Hang on. I can't tell if this is recent. So we've got... I absolutely stand by this. Oh, this must be recent. Yeah, that's what's going to happen. Thank you so much for doing this. You're doing an amazing job. DM'd you on Twitter. Don't let the hate and harassment get to you. Victim of sexual assault. This gym space is needed. I think this is recent. How eloquently put. I think prior to this message, you've been clear of the women's sports purpose. Hopefully it's not something you need to repeat. It goes without saying. Good point on you and I'm queer is a good point to address. I mean, listen, if there's a person calling himself queer and like encouraging this person, maybe there is the potential for people to self-think, who knows. Don't ever let anyone make you feel any other type of way for the business decisions you have made. You've made them with careful consideration, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I mean, I don't see this person as like transphobic. You never know. what someone's true intentions are. But like, I don't know. There's more to it. You can't just see trans exclusion, immediately reach for transphobia. You got to actually think. Yeah, I got to actually use your brain for a second and think about the logistics of having a women-only space where you allow trans women in and how you would stop men from accessing that space. Because if it's woman-only, you're still assuming that men aren't welcome, women only, but you're saying trans women are women. Well, then how do you pick which trans women are actually women and which ones are just men saying that they are? Very difficult. And then how do you explain that to the women that feel like, oh, well, now I've got to have like trans women in my bathroom because like, or their locker room. Because do you really think like, is a place that allows trans women in, a woman only space that allows trans women in, are they going to have separate like locker rooms for trans women and women? That's not going to go down very well. You know what I mean? And then you are necessarily then expecting women to get undressed, get changed, whatever, in front of male people. Experiencing sexual assault when I first joined is harrowing. Yeah, Jesus Christ. Like, this is nuts. I don't know why anyone would give this person, like, crap. This, like... There is a clip of her asking exactly how to exclude most exclusively. I'll have to have a look for that. I think her Instagram came up. See if I can find that again. Oh, so we've got, like, a statement here as well. Women-only space inside gyms are very malnourished. Women can't lift heavy and women don't want to lift, they're just there to lose weight. And had to stay at the gym where the assault took, like, fucking hell. Crazy. Alright, so this is her statement. There was a statement on Instagram. I want to address the recent response to my announcement being the Girl Spot being a single-sex space and operating as female only. I wholeheartedly sympathise with trans women and allies who feel hurt by my recent announcement. I appreciate the decision to operate this way will come as a disappointment to some. The Girl Spot is absolutely committed to ensuring that it is a safe space for biological women, particularly those who have previously been victims of harassment, assault, or overall negative experiences at traditional gyms, or feel vulnerable in those spaces. That's why the Girl Spot aims to have close contact classes such as self-defense and Muay Thai, and host events, workshops, activations around PCOS and training on your menstrual cycle. That has been the unwavering driver behind the Girl Spot. I'm excited to launch this place. I want to be clear, I am no way saying that trans women don't face adversity or they don't deserve a safe space, because they absolutely do. We're all entitled to be treated with kindness and respect. The Girl Spot is no different to many other businesses, and we operate in accordance with carefully considered financial budgets, balanced by location, operating hours, and longevity, meaning it isn't possible in our early spaces to provide all alternatives. The decision to have the Girl Spot as a single-sex gym for those biological female was not an easy decision and something that I've thought over for many years. I spent a great deal of time and money, including seeking legal advice. It was absolutely not a choice made lightly or out of exclusion or malice, but rather out of my commitment to ensuring a space where women who have experienced trauma, harassment, or discomfort in co-ed gyms can feel at ease. This has always been my mission and drive behind the business. The Girl Spot is on a long journey, and I will continue to listen, learn, and lend my support for there to be an inclusive fitness space for all. My hope is that every woman, cis and trans, find a space and they no longer fail, as they need to feel secure, strong, and empowered. So that was her statement on that. I think that was fine. Sometimes a decision doesn't go the way you want it to. That's just kind of how it is. Crying transphobia over this is like nuts to me, and it only like reinforces the idea that there's nothing you can say to trans people and that we're going to take anything remotely like negative or adverse as rampant transphobia. And bear in mind as well, this is someone that's actually having to consider an awful lot of things. They're setting this up. They're going to have to consider a lot of logistics and stuff like this. So having the attitude of, well, you have to find some way of including trans women. Like, I'm sorry, man. Like, you can't expect that. Especially when you're someone that's never like tried to actually set something like this up yourself. Because there are a lot of questions that you have to consider. Last month, within 48 hours, more than 5,400 women registered their interest. A lot of demand. That's good. The fear of jinn intimidation and sexual harassment is not the only driver. I know that Muslim women will form a big part of my community, as well as starting on their fitness journeys. Yeah, I don't know if they're implying maybe Muslim women can't like work out as easily in public, like they have to wear certain things, etc., etc. And then we've got, this is transphobic. To every trans woman who donated or supported this endeavor, I'm sorry you were lied to. I don't know how many trans women even donated. We're going to get onto that shortly. Truthfully, I can see why someone might want a refund if they're a trans woman that thought that they'd be able to access the space and then it turned out they couldn't, bearing in mind the stuff that she was saying before. Like, if people want to say those people are probably due a refund, then that's fair enough. But we're going to get onto that very shortly anyway. Trans women are women and you're a bigot. Wow. Excluding trans women from a women's space, the definition of transphobia. It really isn't. That is not the definition of transphobia. That's the definition of squeezing nuance out of something so that you can have a go at someone, is what that is. Trans women are women, and your desire to exclude them, is it her desire to exclude them? It's her desire to have a women's only space. She's had to like work some shit out and trans people ended up on the sharp end. Does that mean she desires to exclude trans people? Speaks loudly that you still see them as men. Oh man. Women should be able to be protected no matter how they show up. Well, the problem is, men will then show up saying that they're women. If you want to create a safe space for women, create a safe space for all women and recognize the alarmingly high rate of violence that trans women face at the hand of men every single day. I don't know how to break this to you, but she is not responsible for the high rate of violence that trans women face at the hands of men. This woman is not responsible for that. She's not even like culpable because she's not a man herself. Putting this kind of thing on a gym owner is ridiculous. Fiona McKenna, director of Sex Matters. Barnett is well within her legal rights. One sec. And then we saw the post as well, and I think it was fine. Yeah, that's about it for the Daily Mail article. We've got one more, and like I said about the refund thing, this is from the Independent. So we've got a variety of different news sources in case someone wants to tell me that I'm a right winger or whatever shit. Yeah, I know you can't see me. It's because you need to be able to read. Well, people might want to be able to read this. So, women's only gym founder to refund supporters following trans exclusionary policy change. I think this is the right decision. If someone donated on the basis that it would include trans women and now not happy that it doesn't, I think refunding them is probably the right thing to do, quite frankly. I'll put my camera on once I finish doing this. So, biological women only. We've seen a lot of this. We don't spend long on this. Backlash online, accusing of transphobia. I think this is fucked. I think this is cool whatsoever. This is someone who's been assaulted, apparently, at a gym. Like, I think you gotta show a bit more class than what some people are showing when you're dealing with someone like this. Okay, it's mostly the same story, to be honest. But the important thing is there's a mention of refunds. I think that's probably the right decision. I think it's probably you could fall afoul of like some kind of false advertising to do otherwise. I think this person, honestly, they seem very reasonable to me. I'm not seeing anything to indicate this person is a fucking bigot. You know what I mean? So calling this person a bigot just seems out of order. And completely ignoring, like, how many of the people spouting off at this person, how many of those people have ever tried opening a gym? You know what I mean? There's probably all sorts of things you need to think about that you'd never have to think about just living your life normally, you know what I mean? Just getting on with your day, working wherever you work, being in a place where all that legal kind of stuff is worked out for you, where all the logistics are done by someone else. I think it's good of her to allow refunds to people on them. Yeah, I agree. I think it's the right decision. And she seems to be doing everything like, I don't know. I don't see a problem with almost anything so far. But yeah, announced that it was single sex. We've seen all this already. Critics, blah, blah, blah. There was something. J.K. Rowling shared a support of Barnett's decision. A post that read, "Let us in your gym will kill you, say men who pose no risk to women whatsoever." Jesus Christ. Savage. And yeah, like when you're making like a she only got 2,000 in private donors, she got 20k from Gymshark. Yeah, well then it's not a big deal then. Like it's not a big deal to refund those people. The amount of trans women that donated to this is going to be very minimal. Like the amount of people that would actually be due a refund, I'd be surprised if we get into like 3-figure amounts, you know what I mean? And yeah, we've got, Jesus Christ. The gag is so many cis straight women will come into queer spaces because they feel safe. Well, make a queer space that doesn't allow them in then. You're in your right to, I presume. But they hate extending that same openness the other way around. Yeah, this is what I mean. Has this person ever like had to work out the logistics of opening like a women's only space? Do they have any idea what kind of conversations have to be had and what kind of decisions have to be made in order to make sure everything's above board, in order to make sure that it makes sense? You know what I mean? Careful's refund when, yeah, there we go, yeah. We're kind of, there's a side that's being shown to have a bit more principle. That's a joke. Right, India Willoughby signing off. India Willoughby is a real woman, of course. We saw the Instagram things. I think she's been like reasonable, quite honestly. $89 donations from the public. Donations averaging £13. So yeah, she might have to refund about 50 quid, if that, I would imagine. The public was 190. Yeah, and then her own money, and then was it Gymshark, you said, as well. Yeah, so that was that. I'm not seeing any transphobia. I want to have a look at this just quickly, because I want to get as much information before I look at jammidodger's video, because these people tend to twist things. These people tend to select footage. And if they're not doing that, fair enough. I'm just heading that off. They might not be doing that in this instance, just to be clear. But yeah, so we've got so Patience Xena. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say your name. Patience Xena or Xena. Women are raging over a women's gym being female only. And it was mentioned to me that she kind of asks about how she would make it work. You know what I mean? How she would make it women's only while still A, respecting trans women as women and letting them into, and B, excluding men. You know what I mean?
Logistics of it was going to be, she was going to make her gym trans inclusive. She started realizing that the logistics of it was going to be quite tricky to work out.
Okay guys, so this is something I previously spoke about on my TikTok, but again, I always need help when it comes to the LGBTQ plus community, because again, I'm not in the community.
And this was in 2021, bear in mind. This is a while ago.
So I wanted to ask whether there's some kind of line that can be drawn to account for the fact that there are going to be men that come to my gym, say they are a trans woman just to get into my gym and
yeah, this is going to happen, whether you like it or not.
Challenge that, because there are a ton of men in these comments saying I'm going to put on a wig and I'm going to come to your gym. And how do I challenge that? If they say they are trans, then they are trans. Who am I to say they're not? So I wanted to ask whether there's a line that can be drawn, maybe saying that the trans woman has to be going through some kind of medical transitioning, even if it's just hormones, in order.
Yeah, like India Willoughby wants to say, oh, you're going to have to look in women's pants. Well, it's like, well, how do you expect someone to tell a trans woman from a man by that same token?
To be at the gym. I don't want to be transphobic at all, because I am not a transphobic individual. I genuinely believe that trans women are women, but I just think something needs to be put in place, because men are terrifying and men will try and challenge me and men will try and challenge my gym, and I can't have that. So this is another thing I wanted to touch on, because I do want Muslim women to feel comfortable at my gym. So if you are a Muslim woman, please comment down below or correct me on anything if I...
Okay, something's cut off. Woman because they were a man at birth. I'm guessing Muslim women, the inference might be other men, like males that aren't their husband or whatever, maybe aren't supposed to see them in like workout gear, aren't meant to see like their hair or something like that. It's all stuff you got to consider. They're opening a gym in fucking South London. South London is an incredibly diverse area. It's not just other white Western people who are not going to give a shit, largely, whether a trans person walks past them or not. You know what I mean? You got to consider all these things. And my view is that people calling her transphobic don't understand what it takes to make sure that your female only space or women's only space is completely legal and above board and secure.
I say it incorrectly, but I thought that as a Muslim woman, you can train in front of men so long as you're not wearing tight clothing and you keep your hijab on. Please, like I said, correct me if I am wrong, but if that is the case, then training in front of trans women should be fine if you keep your hijab on and you aren't wearing tight clothing. So please correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought those were kind of like the principles of it in terms of religion.
So she's like trying her best. I'll keep this open. I might want to check a couple of things over if I really start getting suspicious of the things that Jamie and his partner are going to say. But to me, it sounds like she's been considering this as much as possible. And then in actual fact, when it comes to actually opening a space and actually having to deal with the reality of this kind of shit, there is so much to think about. And you're always going to be upsetting someone because there's going to be a whole bunch of different groups that all have different standards, especially because it's London. Like, I have a feeling what's going to happen is people are going to be making criticisms that are very easy to make for someone that has never actually tried to do something like this. And bear in mind, it's trans women existing at all that are making this a lot more complicated in the first place. So really, I would prefer if we kind of took our victories where we can and understood that maybe occasionally there's going to be something that's for females and not for males, and that's just going to have to be something we deal with. Like, if there's a female space, then I shouldn't assume that I'm entitled to that space because I'm not female ultimately. But anyway, let's see what jammidodger and Shaba here are saying. Is this transphobic? Women's only gym bans trans women. Listen, I will be as nice as I can. I will be as kind. I'll do my best. Unfortunately, well, we've got the top comment here. Maybe I'll read it in a bit. I have a feeling these are not going to be arguments that I'm very open to. But let's see.
I'm a transgender man.
And I'm Shaba, a non-transgender or cisgender woman. You might be watching this video because you know who we are, or someone has said.
I like how her introduction is much longer when she's like the normal woman. Anyway.
It to you, or because you've been researching the very dominant discussions of transgender people in gendered spaces for yourself. It's definitely a topic that's taking up a lot of space and a disproportionate amount of space in our news and in our politics.
However you come across this, we want to make this video as a tool to help you answer a question that we keep seeing. Is it dangerous to allow trans people in gendered spaces?
Or more
is it dangerous? I mean, yikes. The framing already is a bit worrying because it's not just about danger. It's about lots of different things.
accurately what's really being asked.
Does excluding trans people really protect cisgender women? The most recent example of this question that we've seen, which prompted us to make this video, is the opening of a new gym in London called the Girls Spot. It's found
because right away, it kind of seems like this is just an excuse to talk about whether it's dangerous or not. There's more to it than that. Like, are they going to touch on things like the kind of legal, like, issues that she's going to have to face when trying to enforce kind of the rules?
Founded by Natalee Barnett, who gained a lot of attention by initially stating that this was going to be a trans-inclusive gym, fundraising for its opening, and now saying that she will be banning trans women once the gym is open. Before we get into the details, we wanted to highlight two things. One, this gym is an example of many where trans inclusion has been a hot topic. Whilst this video is about the Girls Spot gym, the points that we make, the statistics that we cite, and the conversations and comments we talk about are all pretty generalizable to any instance of talking about trans presence in women's spaces.
And two, while some people might not like this, I genuinely feel that a lot of people who try to exclude trans people for the reason of protecting biological women, they're not deliberately trying to be transphobic. Many people will have heard things that make them honestly believe that accepting trans women into women's only
Well, excluding trans women isn't necessarily transphobic in and of itself, so I don't know, man.
spaces will harm cis women.
One of the most dangerous things about society today is how easy it is to listen to people that we think we know and trust, and we don't think critically before we take on their viewpoints as our own. For your benefit and your benefit only, you owe it to yourself to verify what you base your worldviews on, especially when it's about communities that you don't have first-hand experience with.
I can confidently sit here as a biological woman and tell you that excluding trans women doesn't protect cis women, but actually increases the risk of harm. But I don't want you to believe that because I'm telling you. I strongly encourage you to think critically for yourself with a 3-step process. Listen to actual experts on the issues that you're discussing. For example, you wouldn't go to a white person
Who was an actual expert on whether trans women are ever a danger to cis women. Anyone can be a danger to anyone. And this isn't just about a potential danger issue. Ultimately, it's a female-only space. Like, are they going to get into the logistics, or is it just going to be about this person deciding it's dangerous, which I didn't hear any of that. We read 3 articles. I watched some other bits. It didn't seem to really be about, I'm not allowing trans women in because they're dangerous. I don't remember those words escaping her lips. In fact, there seemed to be a concerted effort to try and include everyone. But you got to also think realistically. If we're going to go around saying women's only bathrooms don't work because they are not enforceable. That law is not enforceable. Well, how do you enforce making sure that males don't come into this gym that are just men? How do you make sure that, like, for example, we looked at that video, that Muslim women are still able to work out there if there's going to be males present? How do we, like, address those kind of things? You can't just wallpaper all over it. Well, it's transphobic to not allow trans women in. You can't just wallpaper over that. You have to actually get into the arguments. And just framing it around, like, women's safety, that's not all there is to it. There's a lot more to it.
To listen to the prejudice that people of colour face. You would listen to a person of colour. It just makes common sense. So if you want to understand trans people, listen to trans people. Step 2, if people are sharing facts, look into them.
Yeah, the problem is, if you only want to listen to trans people on this, you're bringing in a whole lot of bias depending on who you're talking to, is what I'm trying to say. So if you only go to trans people, and the trans people you go to are, like, saying some pretty mental shit, then that's not going to help you understand that issue better. Like, your info that you're going to get is only as good as the person giving it to you. And we're, like, very politicized. So there's a big kind of impetus to frame things and represent things a certain way, you know?
To make sure that they're real. We've provided a reference list of everything we've cited in this video, and we've tried to highlight wherever possible if something is credible or biased. We've shared research papers and government consultations, and we encourage you to look into all of these things.
So strange. I'll emphasize that sex and gender are different, then treat the sex part like it doesn't matter. Yeah, it comes across that way. A lot of the times, you think that these people are, like, cutting sex out of it, and it's like, well, now what? But the problem is, gender is, like, derived from sex. You can't acknowledge gender without acknowledging sex. And the only reason trans women exist is because there are two sexes. Like, a trans woman is necessarily the other sex to a woman.
Things for yourself, and you can find your own peer-reviewed research using free sources like Google Scholar. And step 3, I really encourage you to think about these discussions in the context of reality. So many people who try to manipulate our views, often for profit, like to fearmonger. They'll say things without that context of reality. Like I could say to you, and this is a fact, that road crashes are the main cause of death among young people. Isn't it our responsibility to protect future generations? Why do we still have vehicles? Or did you know, and this is also fact, that...
Well, here's the thing. Maybe don't look at a statistic and then instantly take the most extremist position possible. You know what I mean? Maybe don't do that. Like, for example, someone can't find a way of working in trans women into their woman-only gym. Maybe don't jump to the extreme opinion, that they might be transphobic. That would be another example of that.
Influencer, mostly across Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. The Independent, known for being quite credible, explains that following an assault at the gym at the age of 18, Natalee decided to create a fitness space.
The Independent, known for being quite credible. What? Based on what?
So women felt safe to train. She specifically wanted to create a space that focused on strength and well-being rather than weight loss, especially because she's found with her own experience in mixed gyms, she's limited with the women's spaces being more lightweight training and cardio machines. That's why she wanted to make her own, the Girl Spot Gym. The Daily Mail, who do have a track record of being more inflammatory and less credible, including on trans topics. We all know.
Please just say the things, Jamie. You don't have to shovel your own bias over me with every word you say. It's so painful. You don't like the Daily Mail. I get it, bro.
That doom clicking equals more profit, have interviewed Natalee multiple times. In 2023, they published an article on the assaults that women face at gyms. Natalee explained how at 18, she was at her regular gym at the regular time in South London when she was sitting in front of mirrors.
Yeah, the Daily Mail is so bad that they repeatedly interviewed a black woman who was sexually assaulted. You gotta think of the optics of this shit. That doesn't sound good, Jamie. Jesus Christ.
Next to a man she'd known for a while. They were talking, and as she lay back on a bench, he touched her inappropriately. It's disgusting that someone feels like they can do that, and understandably she doesn't want to provide further details because it's upsetting. She said she questioned if it happened at all, as she was in disbelief that a man would do such a thing in a public space, and spoke about the impact of that really affecting her. She felt she couldn't tell her loved ones, didn't go to the gym for weeks, and has raised awareness to help the many women who've been assaulted in gyms feel less alone. It's a powerful article where they interviewed...
What we're doing is building up to the but. All these bad things have happened to you at the hands of men, but that's what we're building up to. Let's see.
Many women, and it's no surprise that the comments are less kind towards women. I don't dare look in the direction of a woman in the gym, and surely the answer would be to have separate sessions. Men will always look at women. We cannot help it, highlighting why these spaces are of value. It's also interesting to see how when women are the marginalised community under attack, Daily Mail commenters don't support them.
Fast forward to 2025, and they interviewed Natalee again alongside...
Again, we have to get these, like, pokes in. We have to get these, like... We have to, like, stick the knife in at every opportunity. It's not necessary, and it is making your video more annoying to listen to, quite frankly.
2 others in an article about gym intimidation. The Daily Mail reported that fitness influencers are cheering on a number of women to attend women's-only gyms in an attempt to get away from the unwanted attention of men. The article emphasizes about the gym that men would be banned from using it. That's the good old Daily Mail. Fear-mongering again and stoking culture wars. But Natalee rightfully says it's not an agenda against men, but about the safety...
This is actually insufferable. Are they going to be doing this the whole time? Holy shit, we get it. You don't like the Daily Mail. They lean right. You lean quite firmly left. It's what I expect. You can just read the article and use news sources as what they are, just sources of information.
And protection of women. She speaks a lot about Muslim women too and how they form a large part of her community alongside people who are just starting on their gym journey and new mums. And she quotes that every single person deserves to train exactly how they want to and to feel comfortable whilst doing it.
So yeah, there was questions about, would a Muslim woman, would she have to keep a hijab on if there were males present? Like, you got to think about that kind of thing. Like, a Muslim is not super likely, I wouldn't have thought, to see a trans woman and immediately be like, oh, well, that person's actually a woman. No, I'm fine. Muhammad would be perfectly cool with that. Like, don't know about that, Chief. I don't think, if you're gonna acknowledge this and not think about why the issue might be raised about like male people being around these people, then something's kind of gone wrong, to be honest. And you're not really understanding other people's cultures and perspectives as well as you think you do.
The article also interviews Lindsay Parkins, who provides gym services within a gym called Strong Her, one of the many women's-only gyms that Natalee highlights already exists. Lindsay also shares that there's a big Muslim community there and quotes, "I've never trained in a place which is so open, free and non-judgmental." We'll talk more about this emphasis on Muslim people later on, but what's important to highlight here is that Strong Her is known to be trans-inclusive, and for many years, so was Natalee. In February, Natalee announced that the Girl Spot Gym would be opening later this year, and in 48 hours had over 5,000 sign-ups from women interested in joining the space. The sign-up number now at the time of filming is said to be around 20,000 people, and that sounds great, right? It's such a good cause, it's such a good use of energy.
Wait, have more women signed up now that they know that males actually won't be there?
It's no surprise at all, though, that again, the 3 comments on the article from Daily Mail users are from men who have nothing nice to say about.
Who cares? Who cares about the comments?
Can have influencer and TikTok gyms, then the self-absorbed can go.
Listen, these people are dicks. No one cares. Let's just keep going.
Attack those women, and Natalee, alongside the other women, are on the receiving end of that, stoked by inflammatory language by the Daily Mail, who profits. Natalee's journey up to this point seems quite cool, and there's a huge community of people who really love that and buy into that mission, and some with their actual money, because in 2021, Natalee made a GoFundMe to fundraise for her women-only gym.
In her fundraising, she spoke about how this was an inclusive space for all women, including trans women. Someone actually asked Natalee directly, are trans people welcome? And she said,
Of course, trans women are welcome at my women's only gym. I don't see trans women as trans women. I see trans women as women. And if you identify as a woman, then you're, of course, welcome. And it's just going to be a space for women, by women. So 100,000% trans women are welcome at my gym.
This is incredibly inclusive of trans people. Saying trans women aren't trans women, they're women, sounds like a direct statement against the anti-trans rhetoric that often tries to differentiate trans women from real women. And here's one of the tweets that Natalee posted herself. Respectfully, if you have a problem with trans women attending my gym, then you can find another gym to train at. I've discussed this several times before. Trans women are women, and also a minority that need to be protected. Please keep your transphobia away. Again, this is so inclusive, and the nuance in her wording really shows that she knows what she's talking about. This conviction in saying, go find another gym to train at. This conviction in saying, I've said this.
We're speeding up because I've already looked at the articles, to be clear.
Before. Now, as we know, being trans inclusive can generate a lot of hate, and this is certainly something that.
I mean, very simply, this was 2021. She's since changed her mind. That's what happens. People change their minds on things.
Natalee experienced. Look at the wording of this tweet. It's clearly in response to people who have a problem with the Girl Spot being trans inclusive. And look at retweets like this from an account on Twitter with over 52,000 followers who's been quite bluntly anti-trans. They specifically shared Natalee's tweet and said, friendly reminder to actual women that this girl's so-called women's only.
Well, I was meant to. Well, the problem is it does. Again, we have the question. Well, how would you tell a man from a trans woman?
Gym allows men to join. When she first announced this gym, she confirmed that she allows trans women in her gym. It is not a women's.
Like a mixed sex gym. Well, that's true. That's just true. A trans woman is male.
Only gym. It is a mixed sex gym that allows both males and females. We know these echo chambers generate a lot of community action, so it's fair to assume that Natalee received a lot of pushback for being trans inclusive.
Natalee had a target of £150,000 to fundraise.
Yeah, but she also got pushed back for not being trans inclusive. It goes both ways. It's actually insufferable. How do people watch this person? Like, how much quicker would this video have been if they cut out all the dumb editorializing and all the dumb opinions that no one asked for and just showed the facts and then get into what their problems are with it? Like, who cares if you don't like the Daily Mail? Who cares that the Daily Mail is random men that comment on things to be edgelords? Like, wow, amazing, bro.
For, and to date, she's raised just over £24,000. It is important to note that £20,000 of that was from Gymshark, the gym clothing brand, who, by the way, have a track record of being pretty trans inclusive. So imagine everybody's surprise, especially considering Natalee's outspoken trans allyship when she posted this video a couple of weeks ago. We'll play it in full so you can hear what she has to say and then break it down after to explore why it's so confusing.
In 2021, 4 years ago, I made a tweet, and the tweet referenced my women's only gym, the Girl Spot, and being trans inclusive. Now, when I made that tweet in 2021, I had just announced my plans to open a women's only gym. I hadn't thought out the vision or the mission or what it would entail, but all I knew is that I wanted to open a gym. We are now 4 years later, and I've had a great deal of time to figure that out. The Girl Spot gym exists as a safe space for women because women are facing.
They have to poison the well for the rest of the video to carry water for their narrative. Yeah, most likely.
gym harassment, sexual assault and sexual violence inside of gyms, and I know that because I'm a victim of it. So the meaning of the Girls Spot Gym is now entirely different, and I say this to say that whilst we are a gym, inside we are focusing on self-defense classes, Muay Thai, boxing classes, as well as workshops and activations around PCOS and training on your menstrual cycle, all of which occur to biological women. Majority of the women who are seeking my women's only gym, the Girls Spot, are coming here because they have faced some level of gym intimidation or sexual violence and assault that has been perpetrated by men. So as the owner of the gym, it is very important to make it clear how my women's only gym will be operating, and it will be operating as a single-sex space for biological women. Now, we do believe that everybody deserves a safe space, and there are many gyms that are starting to have mixed cubicles and changing rooms so that individuals can feel safer and more included in these environments. But the Girls Spot Gym as a standalone is a female-only gym because it is imperative that I stick to the vision and the mission and ensure that these women feel safe.
Okay, let's break down some of these points and why they're not making a lot of sense.
In 2021, 4 years ago, I made a tweet, and the tweet referenced my women's only gym, the Girls Spot, and being trans inclusive. Now, when I made that tweet in 2021, I had just announced my plans to open a women's only gym. I hadn't thought out the vision or the mission or what it would entail, but all
Okay, I will say something. Like the pro-trans thing was part of the announcement. I think that's probably quite clear. So I think they mentioned this. That's a fair point.
I knew is that I wanted to open a gym.
So Natalie says her trans inclusivity.
But then, of course, she changes her mind. Like, that's just something you'd expect from any human being now and then.
Gym. I hadn't thought out the vision or the mission or what it would entail, but all
Yeah, she's having to like think through all this stuff as like how it's going to work.
I knew is that I wanted to open a gym.
So Natalie says her trans inclusivity wasn't thought through, but she's thinking about it now. A couple of things don't add up here. Firstly, you don't set up...
What? She didn't say her trans inclusivity wasn't thought through. She wanted it to be trans inclusive, but hadn't thought through how to make that work in a way that preserves the women's only space, because trans women are male.
I had just announced my plans to open a women's only gym. I hadn't thought out the vision or the mission or...
Yeah, she's not saying she hadn't thought through her trans inclusivity. We're changing things straight away. And I'm glad at least they're showing the context so that you can hear the lies straight away. It's quite brave, in fact, like a very brave way of doing it, Jamie.
What it would entail, but all I knew is that I wanted to open a gym.
So Natalie says her trans inclusivity wasn't thought through, but she's thinking about it now. A couple of things...
She didn't say that.
Things don't add up here. Firstly, you don't set up a fundraiser for something you haven't thought about. You've got a clear...
You don't set up a fundraiser for things you haven't thought about. She's saying specifically that she hadn't thought through the trans inclusivity aspect of it, like how it would actually work. The thing about something in concept is that there's going to be things that when you bring it into real life, you haven't thought of in concept and you have to then deal with. You have to deal with, well, how do you screen people so that you get trans women in there but no men? That's the kind of thing she's talking about.
Mission statement that seems well thought out. You make not one, not two, not three, but many public statements, being very clear that this space is intended to be inclusive.
Yes, because that's what she wanted. She wanted it to be inclusive. And then when she started to think about it, when she started to have to work out the logistics of it, that's when it started to change. Because truthfully, how do you do that? And we know this because she's, well, we looked at a video just now where she was talking about like, how do I make sure that it's trans women and not men that I'm letting in? Like, we saw this.
Inclusive of all women, including trans women.
100,000% trans women are welcome at my gym. I genuinely believe that trans women are women. Obviously, cis women are...
Like, if this is an attempt to like hypocrisy hunt, then this is like quite nuts, honestly.
All women, including trans women.
100,000% trans women are welcome at my gym. I genuinely believe that trans women are women. Obviously, cis women are welcome and trans women are welcome.
And here's another screenshot showing her...
Wait, when she said trans women are women, didn't she say something after about like... Because we've got the videos here that he's clip chimping.
Videos at the time.
When I come to build my women's only gym. So if you're part of the LGBTQ plus community, please can you comment down below what you identify as, and of course build when it comes to... So right now in terms of my gym, obviously cis women are welcome and trans women are welcome, but of course in terms of non-binary, like I don't personally know exactly what that means, which is why I want you guys to...
Based. Wait, where was it? Oh, it must have been... Does he show bits from this one? I could be barking up the wrong tree, to be fair.
Three, but many public statements, being very clear that this space is...
But I'll say one thing. He managed to find these older ones. What about the other ones where she's like trying to work out the logistics of it?
Intended to be inclusive of all women, including trans women.
100,000% trans women are welcome at my gym. I genuinely believe that trans women are women. Obviously...
Yeah, hang on.
About on my TikTok, but again, I always need help when it comes to the LGBTQ plus community, because again, I'm not in the community. So I wanted to ask whether there's some kind of line that can be drawn to account for the fact that there are going to be men that come to my gym, say they are a trans woman, just to get into...
Like, he must have seen this. Like, maybe they'll show it and tell us why it's transphobic or something. Some kind of early warning, I don't know.
Cis women are welcome and trans women are welcome.
And here's another screenshot showing her thoughts back in 2021. I'm manifesting a huge women's-only gym where women and anyone who identifies as a woman feel safe and happy to train, says Natalie in her own words. This feels very well thought out. This will be a safe space for plus-size women.
This feels very well thought out. What is he? I don't even know what is like... Well, it seems like it was well thought out. Well, she hadn't thought out, like, the way it would work. She hadn't thought out, like, the logistics of it. Does he just make things up? I don't understand, like, what he's doing here.
Women of colour, hijabis, and anyone that wants to train somewhere where they are respected. Women don't deserve to feel uncomfortable and harassed by men whilst training. This is not having a mission or a vision or thinking about what it would entail back in 2021. Remember as well, Natalie's explained that the girls...
Is that what she said? Oh, I don't like that. I'm going to have to check every single time, aren't I? I'm sure he's twisting. Okay, 12:09. Listen, I'm sorry, it's going to be so obnoxious, but I really, really need to make sure I'm not being gaslit by this person.
A women's only gym.
Down after to explore why it's so confusing.
In 2021, 4 years ago, I made a tweet, and the tweet referenced my women's only gym, Big Girl Sport, and being trans inclusive. Now, when I made that tweet in 2021, I had just announced my plans to open a women's only gym. I hadn't thought out the vision or the mission or what it would entail, but all I knew is that I wanted to open a gym.
I hadn't thought out the mission, what it would entail. So I guess there's a minor hypocrisy being shown here. Like, you had kind of thought out the vision, but there's nothing wrong with changing your mind. There's no shame in that. There's no shame in getting to the point where you have to start working this shit out for real and then realizing you're going to have to change some stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not transphobia.
Vision or thinking about what it would entail back in 2021. Remember as well, Natalie's...
She had some ideas, but I think what she's more saying is there's a lot of stuff that needed flashing out. It's at the concept stage. When you start bringing it to real life, that's when a lot of the questions start coming in. Oh, well, how are you going to make this work? How are you going to make that work? A lot of the more mundane things that you're not really thinking about. And it's like, I want to open a gym. You're not going to be thinking about where should the water fountains go? That kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Explained that the girl spot being a women's only gym isn't a new idea.
So I realised that a lot of people think that my women's only gym is a brand new idea and a brand new concept. It's not. Women's only gyms are pretty much located everywhere. They're just either very, very small or don't have a lot of equipment, so they don't do well. There are so many women's only gyms everywhere and probably in your area.
In her words, there are many all over the place. It's a model that exists and she's familiar with, and she recognises that they're just underfunded and therefore not as well known. This all sounds like a lot of thought had already taken place on the mission and vision. Let's continue with her video.
We are now 4 years later, and I've had...
What point is he even making? Like, yeah, she had visions for a women's only gym that still included trans women. Like, okay, wow. Congratulations on finding the tiniest inconsistency, which can very easily be explained by she's changed her mind, quite possibly because thinking through the logistics of this has raised a lot of questions.
Had a great deal of time to figure that out. The Girls Sport Gym exists as a safe space for women because women are facing gym harassment, sexual assault, and sexual violence inside of gyms.
Again, it is horrific that women are facing this level of assault and harassment from men, and Natalie is not alone with her experience in this. Interestingly, the stats that we could find on gym harassment from men actually include the harassment experienced by trans and non-binary gym goers too in the Gymtimidation report, which goes to show that men are the issue here, not trans women, and trans people are part of the victims, not the attackers. In fact, we found this...
I mean, the data includes those people. Does it include men? Does it include other people treating men a certain way? And even then, like, yeah, I can accept that men are probably worse towards the other groups than the other way around. The problem is you're like touching on why in the first place they want to open this gym. But you'll ignore things like, well, someone can come in saying they identify as a woman, but they appear as a man. And people don't necessarily understand that they're a trans woman or don't necessarily see a trans woman. Then they're seeing a man. They're seeing someone who, by your own words, might be more likely to perpetrate certain things against them.
Piece of content here directly from Natalie that shows even more just how much of an issue men are.
Hey guys, so this is something I previously spoke about on my TikTok, but again, I always need help when it comes to the LGBTQ plus community.
And also, we're fine kind of just demeaning men as if all men need to be tarred with that brush. I don't think that's entirely fair. But hey, men are the problem, I guess.
because again, I'm not in the community. So I wanted to ask whether there's some kind of line that can be drawn to account for the fact that there are going to be men that come to my gym, say they are a trans woman just to get into my gym and challenge that. Because there are a ton of men in these comments saying, I'm going to put on a wig and I'm going to come to your gym. And how do I challenge that? If they say they are trans, then they're trans. Who am I to say they're not? So I wanted to ask whether there's a line that can be drawn, maybe saying that the trans woman has to be going through some kind of medical transitioning, even if it's just hormones, in order to be at the gym.
Yeah, and the problem, like, how do you prove any of that either, you know?
I don't want to be transphobic at all because I'm not a transphobic individual. I genuinely believe that trans women are women, but I just think something needs to be put in place because men are terrifying and men will try and challenge me and men will try and challenge my gym and I can't have that.
When I watched this for the first time, I had tears in my
Yeah, is she ignoring, do we think, the fact that there isn't a way of screening men and trans women? Are we going to get any, like, acknowledgement of that?
eyes. It is so genuine and so real. How beautiful is it that someone who doesn't understand how to approach a community is asking for the best way to do that? How beautiful is this vulnerability and leaning on community? And how beautiful are all of these comments? Many giving suggestions, and we couldn't find a single hate comment here at the time of making this video.
Natalee's question here of how do I stop arsehole men whilst being inclusive to everyone who needs this is a great example of how we can use that three-step process to think critically. Firstly, we listen to first-hand experience and experts, i.e. the community. Natalee here is literally asking the LGBT plus community for input, saying, hey, trans people, let me know.
Wait, so she was asking the trans community for input. The trans community gave input, and then she went against them. Jesus Christ.
How I should approach this. Secondly, we look at stats. Unlike the many significant stats that show that men abuse and harass women, there are no such significant stats that show trans women doing this.
Okay, so he's completely ignoring the problem. Okay, Jamie, how do you tell a trans woman from a man saying he's a trans woman? That was the question in the video. How can you... Are we just going to completely ignore that whole issue?
Same. Government consultations themselves show that in the most vulnerable spaces, women's refuges, they actively support the need for trans people to also use these spaces. No evidence was identified to support the claim that trans women are more likely than cisgender women to sexually assault other women in women-only spaces. This lack of evidence is reiterated by other sources.
And step 3, we apply this to real-life context. In this situation, it is true, as this commenter suggests, that men are not actually likely to do this, especially because the types of assholes...
The men are not going to do it, so it's fine. That doesn't work. That doesn't matter. Because the problem is, you're going to get some trans woman who looks that bad that they say that they're a woman, and that's what you're going to assume. You're just saying use your better judgment. Well, I'm sorry. You're going to have a fucking lawsuit from some trans woman who actually does sincerely believe that they're a woman, but was unable to convince the people at the gym that they're a woman. You know what I mean? This is the exact kind of thing she'll have spoken to with her lawyer and probably influenced the decision to make it single sex, quite frankly.
Who do this are not the types that are going to willingly call themselves by a woman's name or dress up in a feminine way in order to enter.
Wait, the men that do this aren't going to go... What?
Real life context. In this situation, it is true, as this commenter suggests, that men are not actually likely to do this, especially because the types of assholes who do this are not the types that are going to willingly call themselves by a woman's name or dress up in...
Well, they're not going to be going to that gym in the first place because they're going to get told to turn around and leave. So if they want to access the gym, that is what they're going to have to do. This is not, there's no evidence here. This is not, well, it's not going to happen anyway. That's what we're saying. That's not something that's going to happen. Well, based on what? How do you know who's going to say what? How do you know who's going to make who uncomfortable?
In a feminine way in order to enter a space, and the stats reflect this, as there is no evidence that should be relied.
The stats reflect that men who are assholes and will be mean to women in the gym aren't going to dress up as women. Okay.
Upon that men are actually doing this. Look at this government consultation. There are 0 instances of men pretending to be trans women in order to access these vulnerable women's spaces. Applying this context to reality, the men...
Yeah, but what happens if it does happen? What happens if they think that that's happening because someone just doesn't look anything like a woman, but they feel entitled to that space because of their identity? How would you resolve like that legal kind of issue? Like, how would you prove that trans woman's identity? Like, you have to think about that when you're actually doing this kind of thing. The kind of evidence that she's going on. This is fine if you're just having a conceptual conversation. How would my gym work? But this woman is now in the process of like making it happen. She has to think about that kind of thing. She has to make it as airtight as possible, like legally. As few opportunities as possible for a person to litigate against you. You know what I mean? Because let's face it, if someone thinks that they can rinse you for money, then they'll fucking do it. If a man thinks, oh, I could rinse this place for money and pretend that I'm trans and then complain when they tell them I'm not welcome, then they might do it. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what might bite this woman in the ass if she doesn't think about it.
And that do this are just going to come in, or they're going to go to other women's only spaces, or they're going to wait outside.
This is based on no evidence. Like, what? No data suggests that men do this. Okay, well, what happens if it does happen?
Side of these spaces, like outside of the gym, because nobody, including Natalie, can single-handedly tackle the problem of men being assholes, and men abuse women everywhere.
Okay, but she probably can tackle the issue of keeping her woman-only space women-only. She probably can tackle that because it's her establishment. No one's asking Natalie Barnett to tackle the issue of men being assholes. That's not what we're talking about here. She wants it to be female only. She wants it to be women only. So how do you make sure that it's female only? That's the question being asked, and the question being completely hand-waved, ignored by these people. There's not an adequate way of settling that issue. And if this is the kind of response she was getting, then I'm not surprised that she decided to make it female only.
Not just in gyms. So if arsehole men are threatening to do this to you, it has nothing to do with trans women and letting them in. It's to do with men being assholes.
No. The problem is, how do you tell who's a trans woman and who's a man? What's the difference? Like, I don't know. What are we trying to say? Men do bad things and you can't hope to stop them, so don't worry about this kind of stuff? I'm like blown away. These people have 1.15 million subscribers. I guess I'm just going to do this every single time I watch any of their stuff. 1.15 million subscribers. This is moronic. You're not answering what she's saying. And what you're doing is saying, oh, well, it's not going to happen, or well, it never happens. Which is great until it does happen. Which is great until someone you let in who's a trans woman starts causing problems. And you're pretending, we can say, well, trans women never cause these kind of problems. How do you know that? We've heard of trans women doing all sorts of kind of things. That doesn't mean that any one trans woman is likely to. But what happens if that kind of thing comes up?
And they're going to continue to do that regardless of whether you are welcoming trans women.
Okay, so how do you tell trans women from those kinds of men? If they say they identify as a trans woman, does that not make them a trans woman? If they say they identify as a woman? So how do you tell which ones are likely to do that? She probably also doesn't want to be in the position where, well, let's say that did happen and one of the people in my gym that I started as a survivor of sexual assault then got assaulted. You have to be so careful. I can tell for a fact that this person has never tried to set anything up like this and has never had to actually work out this kind of thing. I'd love to know what these people prescribe. Well, I guess it's just anyone that says they're a woman, you can come in, you're a woman. Because they're definitely not going to do anything if that's the case. She is brushing off the issue 100%, yeah. Just ignoring the issue that she's raising, which obviously didn't get answered sufficiently, because otherwise maybe she would have kept it like trans inclusive. I don't know if there was an actual good response to this. Like everything I've seen so far, she seemed very reasonable and thoughtful. Did you miss the roasting of Scammy Dodger? This is Jammy Dodger's partner. This is Shaba. Here we go, Jammy Dodger. Yeah, this is terrifying so far. Oh, well, it doesn't happen anyway, so don't worry.
Or not.
This video, though, again shows that Natalie really had thought about who she was letting into her gym. Let's continue with her trans exclusion video.
And I know that because I'm a victim of it. So the meaning of the Girls Spot Gym is now entirely different.
Natalie here is sharing that she's a victim of SA, and that because of that, the meaning of the gym is entirely
We're going to get the butt soon. Here we go.
different. Again, and we cannot emphasize this enough, it is obviously terrible that Natalie has experienced this. Speaking as a cis woman who has also shared about being assaulted by multiple men, I can really understand this fear on a deep level. But you know who I don't blame? Trans women. Because trans women are not men. Further, and
That still doesn't explain how to stop men from accessing the gym then. Like, you're just ignoring that point. Well, trans women and men aren't the same thing. Well, what's the difference then? What's the difference between trans women and men that is observable enough that the gym employees can make sure that they allow trans women in, but don't allow men in? You know what I mean? Jamie Natalie is saying, trans women and men, go over it, it's done. Well, the thing is, trans women are male. And we can pretend like that's not the case, or we can gloss over that ad nauseum, but like, fucking hell. The usual trans protest outside didn't happen because it's a black-owned gym in South London, trans bully whites. Hey, maybe. The other thing is, South London is not a very white area, and plenty of the people that do live there might not even be very trans-affirming anyway, depending on what country, what religion, etc., etc. Does this woman consider herself straight? I would guess so.
And keeping in mind that we are not at all downplaying the effect and impact that assault can have on a person, we do need to clarify the timeline of what's going on. Natalee has spoken repeatedly about her assault being a strong motivator for why she's starting a women's-only gym, and that happened when she was 18 in 2018, before she spoke about this gym being an inclusive space for trans women in 2021. It's really confusing to me that Natalee's now sharing that an assault that happened in 2018, a very valid origin for a very valid project, is—
Oh, it's so nice that she thinks it's valid. How nice. What a kind person this is. Oh, I'm glad you think that this person's project is valid.
being used to explain why the meaning of this gym is now entirely different.
What if she'd been assaulted by Sophie from Mars? Would she change her mind because Sophie is a trans woman? Probably not at this point. I don't know. If you pretend that trans women never do the same kind of things that men do, then you're delusional anyway. So you've already lost me at that point.
Between 2021 and 2025. What happened between these years that made that motivation entirely different? We would never condemn a person for sharing so vulnerably their experience.
Well, the thing is, her trauma might mean that she doesn't ever want to be in a gym space around other men. And there are probably going to be women out there that have a similar experience, that feel the same way. Are all those women going to be like trans inclusive? If all those women see a man that's a trans woman in their gym, or they see a trans woman that looks too much like a man, are they going to start feeling a certain way? Are they going to start getting re-traumatized potentially? You have to be very careful around trauma. She was Lexi Sacker's victim. Yeah, Jesus Christ. I wonder what, I bet these people would probably say, oh, someone like Lexi Sacker or Isla Bryson isn't trans, but I don't know. Having done bad things as a man supposedly doesn't actually invalidate your trans identity. Because it can't. That isn't how it works at all.
Experience of assault, especially with the intentions of helping another person. I myself do not have the strength to share as much as I would want. Anybody sharing their experience of assault to help other people is entirely valid. But what's not valid is using it, even if it's subconsciously or unintentionally, as a way for not taking accountability for being discriminatory, and instead
taking accountability for being discriminatory. No, she's explaining why it's like that. It's got nothing to do with accountability for being discriminatory. She didn't have to be accountable for being discriminatory when it was men. And she's asking questions about how to include people, about how to tell the difference, because she really doesn't want men in there, and she doesn't want to take that risk. She's not willing to take that risk. Unfortunately, trans women may not be able to use this gym. It just is what it is. She was going to open a gym and see who turned up. Gyms are not a complex business enterprise.
shifting that accountability onto trauma that wasn't even caused.
Like, this is not fair. This is actually quite fucked up. Like, I don't know if she also has a psychology degree like jammidodger, if she's using his psychology degree to speak down to people, but either way, it's actually quite gross. Like, ultimately, she doesn't want men in her gym. She can't find a way to include trans women but exclude men at the same time, and isn't willing to take that risk because of her trauma. Like, it's quite easy if you think about it rationally for any length of time.
By this group of people in the first place. Men are the problem here, not trans women. Let's continue.
And I say this to say that.
Yeah, and you still haven't answered how she's supposed to tell. Like, she played this literal video and is unwilling to answer the question being asked here. This is nuts. Like, all we've really had is, well, men are not likely to do that anyway. Well, okay, the first man ever does it, and it happens in your gym, and he fucking rapes someone because of it. And that's your gym that you opened to try and make sure that that wouldn't happen to other women. Wouldn't that be fucking devastating? You know what I mean? Oh, they both have PhDs. Wow. Well, I look forward to all the people that watch this post-fact and tell me that they have PhDs, so they know more than I do. Don't think it matters myself.
The community. So I wanted to ask whether there's some kind of line that can be drawn to account for the fact that there are going to be men that come to my gym, say they are a trans woman, just to get into my gym and challenge that. Because there are a ton of men in these comments saying I'm going to put on...
Yeah, if she's not willing to take this risk, that's up to her. And her having had trauma to the point where she's not willing to take that risk. There's nothing wrong with that. And it's actually quite fucked up to start shaming her and suggesting that she's not taking accountability for being discriminatory when she's discriminating against males. And when you lump in trans women into males, there's your answer. By the way, trans women tend to follow male patterns of criminality when it comes to like sexual assault. Yeah, there was studies. I mean, bear in mind, obviously, we're seeing like small cohorts, but you're going to get that with like trans incarcerated people, you know what I mean? Yeah, so we had this study find that male to female transitioners were over 6 times more likely to be convicted of an offence than female comparators, and 18 more times more likely to be convicted of a violent offence. In terms of all this, like, this risk of like criminality that's going to traumatize someone and be exactly what she's trying to avoid by doing all this in the first place. Like, the only way to really make that airtight is to discriminate against males. And that means MTFs as well. Male to females follow a similar pattern of criminality to males. That's just how it is. And when people, like, you can take that both ways as well. If someone's to try and argue that they think that trans men are necessarily more violent than females, like, is that actually true? Or is it more likely that trans men kind of follow a similar pattern themselves? But there's evidence for this. Like, when you actually think about this for any length of time, oh, hi, Kurt, nod, I hope you're good. When you think about this for any length of time, it becomes clear that we need to consider males in this whole thing. And that letting in trans women does actually still raise certain risks that not letting them in would stop. And this person has trauma. They're not taking any chances. That's up to them. Why, instead of shaming this person, could we not suggest that trans women just go to any of the other gyms around there that are also trans inclusive for women? You know what I mean? If there's already loads out there, then does it really matter that much if one of them is just for females? I know they put out statistics of 1 in 4, 1 in 5 women have been sexually assaulted. As a woman who's probably been sexually assaulted but would never label it that, it's probably a higher percent. Yeah, maybe, yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, sexual assaults are like seldom reported and stuff like that. So, like, I don't know, man. It just seems to me like trans women seem to follow the same pattern as males, like, criminally. So it's something you have to consider. And if she's not willing to take chances, that's her choice, ultimately. That's not a fair reason to call someone a transphobe. There's not a fair reason to say, oh, well, it's bad that you got traumatized and you got raped, but you're being exclusive and you need to be accountable for that. It's like, I think that Shaba is like empathy deficient, if that's what she truly believes.
That whilst we are a gym, inside we are focusing on self-defense classes, Muay Thai, boxing classes, as well as workshops and activations around PCOS and training on your menstrual cycle, all of which occur to biological women.
This feels a little irrelevant to the conversation at the moment, but Natalie delves into it in more detail in another video, so we'll talk about it soon.
The majority of the women who are seeking my women's only gym, the Girl Spot, are coming here because they have faced some level of gym intimidation or sexual violence and assault that has been perpetrated by men.
Yes, Natalie, by men, not trans women.
So as the owner of the gym, it is
Okay, Jamie, so for the millionth time, how does she tell who's a man and who's a woman? As in a trans woman? How is this enforced? Whenever it's like the trans bathroom question, you're all on that shit like a tramp on chips. Well, how do you enforce it? How do you enforce it? It's impossible. You can't enforce any kind of male-female bathroom split. But now suddenly, how it's enforced doesn't matter.
very important to make it clear how my women's only gym will be operating, and it'll be operating as a single-sex space for biological women.
So Natalie's answer to trying to prevent men from harassing and assaulting women in gyms is to ban trans women.
We want to be...
Yes, which is the best way of making sure that that doesn't happen, to be clear. Like, you're not just banning trans women, you're excluding all males. Like, you can't pretend that trans women have nothing in common with males when trans women are male. And you can't pretend that men and trans women are this entirely distinct group when trans women literally have everything in common with men except for their gender identity.
Single-sex space for biological women.
So Natalee's answer to trying to prevent men from harassing and assaulting women in gyms is to ban trans women.
No, it's to ban males.
We want to be very clear here. Real-life experience has all...
Trust me, I've seen it. The Met crime stats show a similar pattern in relation to crime when comparing trans women, males, increased sex offences compared to male gen pop isn't surprising at all. Yeah, my understanding is that that's the case, yeah. Like, male people follow a certain criminality pattern, female people follow a different one. I don't think trans status actually makes any difference with that. The only time I think it would make a difference is like things like sexual reassignment surgery. If you don't have a penis in the UK, you can't actually rape someone, for example. And I mean, by that point, you know, you probably don't have that kind of drive to do that kind of thing, or you wouldn't have your penis taken off in the first place, you know what I mean?
Already shown that excluding trans women not only discriminates against the trans community, but also increases the risk of harm to cis women like me in three main ways: unrealistic enforcement, the unforeseen inclusion of trans men in women's spaces, and the fact that we are detracting from really important conversations that could...
This is stupid. This third one, you might as well get rid of. You're just saying, oh, we should talk about something else.
Make genuine change and improvements to women's safety. Let's talk about each in turn. Firstly, imagine for a second that there is a legitimate reason to exclude trans women. In order to exclude a trans woman, you first need to be able to detect a trans woman.
Wait, so her argument is going to be, well, you can't tell which one's a trans and which one's just a man, so you should let all of them in. Are you fucking for real? She has trauma around this shit. This is exactly what she wants to avoid.
And the biggest issue with trans exclusion, apart from the fact that it's immoral, is that there's no realistic way to do that.
How is it immoral? You're never going to say.
To trans women. And the biggest issue with trans exclusion, apart from the fact that it's immoral, is that there's no realistic way to do that.
Is that because trans women and men are basically the same thing?
When under 18s are not allowed in clubs, you write a policy that says that under 18s are not allowed in clubs. Then inside the club, everybody is suspicious if somebody looks under the age of 18. They'll be reported by members.
Well, no, they get ID'd. Generally, they trust like the door staff that they've done their job and that they've ID'd them. You get ID'd.
To the public and asked to leave if it's verified that they are indeed underage. This is a system that we're all familiar with, right? But that's because there's a really easy way and easy documentation to verify age. You can write a
Yeah, but also because you can get in serious fucking shit if you serve drinks to a minor.
policy that says that trans women are not allowed. But what is the equivalent of the age check? There is no legal document that says I am trans that one can show.
I'm a trans man.
So why can't they understand why she wouldn't take that risk and would rather just keep everyone out? Isn't that her right? You've already said there's other gyms that they can go to. There's other gyms that are trans inclusive. How is this an argument for including trans women? You're actually arguing to include men. You're saying you should include trans women and you're not going to be able to tell them from men. Well, then it makes sense as to why she'd take the position of, well, then we can't have trans women. Because she's literally had that experience herself. She's literally been sexually assaulted.
Women are not allowed. But what is the equivalent of the age check? There is no legal document that says I am trans that one can show.
I'm a trans man and my birth certificate, driving license, passport, utility bills, everything says male, not just man.
Yeah, but you're still a female. You've been able to lie on your documents. Well done.
But also man, but also male. So that check isn't enforceable.
Yeah, all of this is telling me that she's not going to take the risk in that case because she has deep trauma. And that these fucking idiots don't understand trauma, even if they might have it themselves. That's not uncommon, by the way. Just because someone has trauma, it doesn't mean they fucking understand it. For sure.
When you can't rely on documents, you then have to rely on being able to visually pick out a trans woman. Typically people, primarily transphobes, will use the visual aesthetics of a person to try...
I would love to know what he means by transphobes. This is just boogeyman shit. Like, transphobes are just the generic evil people that we have to boil the world down to, like good guys and bad guys. Like, okay, wow.
And determine if they're trans. They've made things like this. And you know what that leads to? Any woman who doesn't conform to stereotypical Western beauty ideals of femininity being at best questioned and at worst harmed. There are no consistent examples of trans women harming cis women. There are no consistent examples of trans women harming cis women. Has this person harmed any cis women? The wording is so obfuscating a little bit. Yeah. Consistently harming trans... Like, what does it mean to consistently harm women? Like, what is he trying to say? That trans women have never, like, harmed cis... Like, what are you talking about? You get all these, like, trans prisoners that, like, start impregnating female inmates. You get how many trans rapists?
What about girls? Do they count as cis women? I guess they're cis girls. We've got that Katie Dolatovsky who got into a woman's bathroom, actually, and assaulted some children. Karen White, born a man, molested inmates in a 3-month reign of terror. Well, that sounds like someone consistently harming women to me. Like, I don't know. If we're going to play these stupid word games, then yeah, I'm going to get pedantic on you. That's how it is. And this is like, what did Karen White do? So this is what they were doing in jail. What were they doing beforehand? Like, what were they done for? Previously raped 2 other women. So a trans woman that raped other women and then went into women's jail and spent months molesting women, apparently. We're going to say that there's no evidence of trans women consistently harming women? Like, what? This doesn't make any sense. Anyone has the potential to harm anyone. Like, there's just no argument here. You're just saying crazy shit. Maybe it gets to a certain stage of the video where they throw out, like, any care about facts because not many people are watching past, like, you know, a certain amount. But, like, you can't just come out with stuff like that. I don't know how this is, like, okay.
Femininity being at best questioned and at worst harmed. There are no consistent examples of trans women harming cis women.
Yeah, so there are, in fact, consistent examples, or examples of consistent that, you know what I mean? It happens. That doesn't mean we should say that trans women in general are going to do that. But the thing is, what you're dealing with is a woman who has, like, literally been sexually assaulted at a gym herself, wanting to make sure that that doesn't happen to other people and that they can work out and do whatever else, free of, like, the fear of that happening. Like, a trans woman could end up doing that. You don't know. And if we're going to say that men are the problem, we need to expand it to males. Because that's where the heightened level of criminality, especially towards sexual assault, is. It's males and females. It's not men. And then trans women and everywhere else are over the other side.
There are no consistent examples of cis men pretending to be trans women to access women's spaces. There are consistent examples of
6 men who disguise themselves as women to access bathrooms. Listen, I don't know what the Daily Signal is. Apply bias however you want. In 2009, a sex offender named Richard Rendler was arrested for wearing fake breasts and a wig while loitering in a women's restroom in a Campbell, California shopping center. Previously been arrested on charges of child molestation. Gregorio Hernandez disguised himself as a woman on 2 different occasions to get inside a UC Berkeley locker room. We've got, like, so that's ABC News, Mercury News, don't know what that is. In 2013, Jason Pomare was arrested for cross-dressing in order to gain access to a woman's restroom in Macy's store in Palmdale, California. Snuck in a video camera. Chris Hambrook, fake being a trans person named Jessica, preyed on women at 2 Toronto shelters. So this is literally someone pretending to be trans to access a space. We've got Toronto Sun. That's a news outlet. Sexual predator who falsely claimed to be transgender, preyed on women at 2 Toronto shelters, were jailed indefinitely on Wednesday. So this is exactly the kind of thing that this woman, this Natalee Barnett woman, is trying to avoid. Surely. Like, yeah, this is going to be an extremely, like, vanishingly rare thing, but it can happen. Do you want that to be your establishment? Well, if not, maybe you shouldn't let any males in. Because there isn't, like, I'll agree with Jamie on one thing. There isn't a really a reliable way to tell a trans woman from a man. So then the easiest way, if you want to be as secure as possible, is to just cut that demographic off. Males, not men. And then when it comes to trans men, well, if someone's coming up that has a beard and stuff, you'd probably think they're a man anyway. You'd probably say, well, you can't access this place. because you're a man. What are they going to say? No, actually, I'm female. Like, I don't know, man. So, claimed to be a transgender woman, was a dangerous offender. Judge said he imposed the indefinite prison sentence because the great risk that Hambrook will commit more sex crimes. Attacked 4 vulnerable females between the ages of 5 and 53. Jesus Christ. Sexually abusing a 5-year-old girl. Raping a 27-year-old intellectually challenged woman in Montreal. Jesus Christ. Nuts. So it happens. Listen, I'm not going to go around saying that this is definitely going to happen if she allows trans women in there. It's not like that. Maybe she would allow trans women take the risk of men using her gym and nothing bad will happen. Doesn't seem like she's willing to take that risk, and it's kind of understandable when you hear her story. 2 spying instances in Virginia, one at a mall and one at a Walmart. Both instances involved a man in women's clothing used a mirror and a camera. Jesus fuck. To take pictures of a mother and a 5-year-old daughter and a 53-year-old woman whilst they're in neighbouring restroom stalls. Wore a pink shirt and a long wig to present himself as a woman. Fucking hell. Man used a woman's locker, public swimming pool, to undress in front of young girls who were changing for swim practice. When asked to leave, the man claimed, "The law has changed and I have a right to be here." The man made no attempt to present as a woman. Oof. Ouch. So, I don't know. Are we going to say that what he's about to say when we play again is a lie?
Femininity being at best questioned and at worst harmed. There are no consistent examples of trans women harming cis women. There are no consistent examples of cis men pretending to be trans women to access women's spaces.
And when you say a consistent example, what do you mean? Like, there's examples out there. I'm sorry, man. It happens.
There are consistent examples of cis women turning on other cis women because they've mistaken them for a trans woman and they are trying to enforce trans exclusionary rules. This is what happens when we
trying to enforce trans exclusionary rules as opposed to, I'm uncomfortable, I think this is a woman. And what normally happens in these situations, like, is there often a problem? Or is it more likely, oh, I thought you're a guy, oh, well, I'm not, oh, okay then. I've been accosted at a bathroom once, like years and years ago when I was like early in my transition. It ended up being fine. There's not always even women trying to be trans exclusionary. They're seeing a problem and acting on it. And they were wrong. They misread the situation. Unfortunately, that's something that just happens. Oh yeah, the We Spy incident. Yeah, true.
other cis women because they've mistaken them for a trans woman and they are trying to enforce trans exclusion.
I mean, it's not good either. Like, it would be better if we didn't do that, if you know what I mean. There have to be millions in order for it to be consistent. Yeah, he probably does think that, even though there's not millions of trans people in the first place. But hey, I don't know for sure. I can't read his mind.
Exclusionary rules. This is what happens when we have rules of trans exclusion.
Like, that's not good, but then nor is letting a man into a women's gym that might end up doing something that they shouldn't be doing.
In an attempt to protect cis women.
Like, those examples of cis women getting shit for being in the wrong bathroom, supposedly, those are also extremely rare occurrences, are they not? It kind of goes both ways on this count.
Like here, when a 24-year-old cis woman was traveling in Las Vegas with...
Is this hairline doing okay, by the way? It's quite, wow. Was it always like this? Anyway.
her boyfriend and was harassed by another cis woman who thought she was trans.
Or here.
Yeah, that's not good. That doesn't mean that Natalee Barnett should let men into her gym, though.
Where Boba, a politician in the Capitol, stormed into the women's bathrooms to complain after thinking that a trans woman was in there, and then shouted at a cis woman who she then later reportedly apologised to.
Or here.
Yeah, so she apologised, hopefully has learned a lesson not to see, let's say, a woman with short hair, oh my god, it must be a man, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's not great that this stuff happens.
When a cis woman was using the bathroom in Walmart in Connecticut and was told she was
But we're going to pretend that no man has ever accessed a female space by pretending to be a female. We've just looked at a bunch of examples of people doing far worse things than kicking off at someone that they mistake for a woman, for a man. Like, what you're describing is nowhere near as bad as the also rare, admittedly, things that you're saying never happen. It's extremely, like, lopsided how we've got all these examples of something that's bad, sure, but no examples of very real things that have definitely happened. Like, it almost seems like this person is incredibly biased, doesn't it? You know what I mean?
Disgusting and wasn't allowed to be there. Amy was a 22-year-old who just donated her hair to cancer victims and was wearing a cap at the time this happened. Presumably that's why people thought she was a trans woman. She also explained that a year before this, a man had followed her into a bathroom to assault her and—
Wait, I thought this never happened. Man following a woman into a restroom? Well, I guess the man part, I guess that does happen, but they don't pretend to be women except for when they do. I guess that's it.
shared this to show that men are not deterred by trans exclusionary policies.
It does suck, but it happened far less often before men were invited to all women's spaces. Well, that's the other thing. Part of the reason that women are, like, getting hyper-vigilant about this stuff is because it's, like, happening more often. Because we're normalizing this to an extent. Inclusion often leads to exclusion because a group of people that wants a me world, which doesn't always work. Yeah, true. Like, attempts to be inclusive can end up, like, excluding people as well, for sure. One could argue the uptick of women policing bathrooms is due to the fact that men are invading our spaces. Well, yeah, true. Women are becoming more hyper-vigilant about this kind of stuff because they're now more worried that males are going to access their spaces. Or someone that claims to be a trans woman, but to them just resembles a male. And it's unfortunate. It's not good that this kind of thing happens. It's also not good to say that men never pretend to be women or dress up as women in order to access the spaces, when very quickly you can find examples of just that. If you were an honest person, you'd be presenting both sides. You'd be presenting the evidence for both. But you're trying to pretend that only one of these things ever happens, which is not honest, it's not true, and it's not fair to do. And the people that are watching are not going to pick up on this kind of thing. These people, this is like a sycophantic fan base. This is basically a cult. And they'll let these people get away with anything, even if it's completely lopsided, even if it doesn't actually make any sense, even if they say a bunch of outright lies that you can immediately disprove. Like 5 minutes on Google, and Google is like, it seems to try and hide things away from you, but it's still easy to do.
Many examples of how transphobia and trans exclusion directly increases the risk to—
That is not... I hope you're not saying that this is showing that, because it really doesn't.
A male acting like a woman and was reported as saying, "I finally went off, man. I'm not ashamed of it."
These are some of many examples of how transphobia and trans exclusion—
This isn't about transphobia and trans exclusion. What are you talking about?
directly increases the risk to cis women too. Women—
You haven't shown that. Transphobia and trans exclusion cause this? How do you know it's not an uptick of non-passing trans women using women's toilets and women feeling more hypervigilant about males in their spaces because they might not be happy with them? And the problem is, yeah, you're going to get people that will push all of the examples of, like, the trans women that do this kind of thing and the men that do this kind of thing, and probably make women feel more vigilant than they should be. But then the problem here is, jammidodger's trying to do the opposite thing. Well, actually, it's the transphobes doing all of it, and trans people never do any of that shit. Which of the two issues is more common? Genuine question. I'm not sure. But the two issues aren't even on the same level. A woman getting accosted because they look like a man in a women's changing room or a bathroom or whatever is not cool. It's a bad thing to happen. It's not on the same level as a man dressing up as a woman so that he can get a mirror, point it under a stall, and take pictures of a girl and her grandmother. You know what I mean? Those are not on the same level. The second one is quite clearly worse. And that's what he is pretending never happens. So he's a liar. I'm happy to admit that this shit happens and is not cool. And that arguably the media plays a part in, like, pushing this, like, hypervigilance. But the problem is, so does insisting that men who do not make any effort to look like women whatsoever should be using that room all the same, and that you should assume that that means they must be a trans woman. You know what I mean? So like, it's fair enough to like raise awareness of like kind of an issue here, but you're ignoring like a much worse issue. And if you were to not ignore that, you can still be like trans positive, but understand why someone might not want males in their women only space because of those things, because it's impossible to police. If it's impossible to police, which these people have acknowledged, why is it wrong then to cut out all males?
With short hair, for example, or who dress more masculine. TERFs themselves have been accused of being trans and excluded from women's spaces by other transphobes. A grandma was sent to a men's prison just because she's on estrogen and was presumed to be trans, even though she's cisgender, and taking estrogen is not uncommon for women going through menopause.
And honestly, nothing sounds more anti-feminist than literally feeling forced as a woman to present in a particularly feminine way.
What's this got to do with the fucking gym? Does it feel anti-feminist to say, well, you can't stop men pretending to be trans women, therefore you have to let all of those people in and assume that all of them are being genuine about their gender identity, which totally should be put on the same level as your female sex? Is that unfeminist?
In reality, even if Natalee thinks that she is creating the safest space for cis women, what she's actually creating is a safe space for women who perfectly fit stereotypical ideals of femininity. Any
That's retarded.
woman, cis or trans, who
Where is there any evidence that she would, like, let's say, discriminate against butch women? Where's the evidence for that?
falls outside of this will be at greater risk of having their bodies scrutinized, of being embarrassed, being harassed, or being questioned. So by being trans exclusionary in the name of protecting cis women, you're actually creating a much more increased risk of harming cis women.
That doesn't make any sense. Like, if you're in the gym, you're not going to be worrying about that kind of thing because it's a women's only space. You're not going to be worrying, oh, that woman that looks a bit masculine, is that actually a man? Because what you're going to do is presume that the fucking staff were doing their job and that they're not letting men in.
Being trans exclusionary in the name of protecting cis women, you're actually creating a much more increased risk of harm.
And we're acting like this is a necessary thing that will happen because you let in. Like, we're going to act like letting in males is fine and probably won't lead to any kind of bad things, even though there's an increased possibility in that, necessarily. But we'll act like, well, if you don't, then necessarily any women that don't look like women are going to, like, suddenly be discriminated against. It's like, I don't think it's like that, man. I don't think you've got anything to show that at all. It's happened to other women, sure. Women have been, like, mistaken for men and given shit over it, which is bad, like I've said for the millionth time. But then you'll pretend that things don't happen that also do.
Harming cis women. I really hope.
So, like, there's infinitely more possibilities saying that women will get shit if they don't look like women in this gym. But we'll give no credence to the idea that a male person in this gym, irrespective of whether their gender identity is real or not, because you've already agreed that you can't tell. We're giving no credence to the idea that that might increase, that problem might increase. It doesn't make any fucking sense.
You can see how these examples clearly show that.
Say someone does come to Natalee's
Did not clearly show that. When these people say things like, this has been clearly shown, or clearly it's this means they're pulling it out their ass. Your standards are all over the place.
gym and they're scrutinised and accused of being a trans woman. Some institutions have decided that genital checks are the way to go, and multiple places in America are literally considering this as a legal policy in girls' sport. If someone is trans or not, I can tell you right now, that doesn't feel very...
Just getting back to the subject, they just go off on one so often.
Comes from the exclusion of trans women. Let me explain. When people say they want to ban trans women from a space, they do this with the rule of creating a female...
Is there a shortage of gyms in the UK? Probably not, no. They literally admitted that that other gyms exist that allow trans women in. So, I don't know, man.
only space because they don't...
But, like, you can't exclude trans people ever. Otherwise, these kinds of people are going to be on your case.
Then, let me explain. When people say they want to ban trans women from a space, they do this with the rule of creating a female-only space because they don't recognize trans women as female. The reality is science...
But they're not female, you retard. Like, what are you talking about? A trans woman is not female. Either sex and gender are different things or they're not.
It's not black and white like that, and life isn't black and white like that. What they're meaning to say is they don't want anyone assigned male at birth in these spaces, only people assigned female at birth. So if this is the rule, then I, as a trans man who was assigned female at birth,
Well, the thing is, they might say they don't want trans men either. And why would you want to go to this gym as a trans man anyway? Why would you want to insist on going to a female-only gym as a trans man? Why would you be more likely to want to go to that gym if they weren't letting trans women there? None of this makes any sense.
would not be allowed to use the men's only spaces, and I would have to use the women's only spaces because of transphobes. So in that world where those rules exist, then I, as a trans man, would be allowed in the girl spot gym. Do you not think that women who want a space away from...
Yeah, allowed, well, potentially allowed in. I think they'd probably see you and be like, nah, I think you're a bloke. You don't even think you're a biological female anyway. And why would a trans man suddenly be like, oh, well, this is a space for biological females, I should go here? Like, aren't you going to want to go to a gym that includes men as part of things like, you know, social, what's the word? Social coherence to your gender identity? Aren't you going to want to do that? Why would you want to go to that gym?
Men would not feel more intimidated and uncomfortable by my presence in a women's only space than by a trans woman's presence in a women's only space. It therefore makes the idea of excluding trans women, and by proxy including trans men, not mitigate the issue of women feeling unsafe.
That's ridiculous and doesn't follow that you're still going to be letting in men. Like, what's worse? Allowing trans men or allowing men? Like, trans men overwhelmingly don't have the appendage necessary to, like, rape someone. That doesn't mean they can't still do stuff. But I don't know, man. The average woman probably would feel more comfortable if that person, like, let's say you're alone with what you think is a man in a room, and then after a while you find out he's a trans man. Are you potentially not going to feel at least a little bit more safe, maybe? Because you know he's not actually a guy? I don't know. None of this makes any sense.
If people are using the argument of, well, if we let trans women in, what's to stop cis men from pretending that they're trans women and accessing these spaces? What's to stop cis men from doing that with trans men?
That's a point, but that we don't actually know that this person wants to let trans men in. She might not be down with, like, trans men coming in, even though it's a single space. This might be a moot point anyway. You're not forced to accept trans men just because it's, like, single sex, as far as I can tell. Like, if something's a female-only space, does that mean that trans men are, like, legally they have to be allowed in there? I guess it's possible. But then, like, why are trans men wanting to access it anyway? We're able to just write off, well, no men are going to pretend to be women just to just to come in here. But then a trans man might. And by the way, if you pulled that man's pants down, you'd extremely quickly tell whether they're male or female or not.
These cis men who are wanting to be predatory to women have a much easier time saying, well, I'm actually a trans man, let me in. Again, predatory men don't do this.
Well, then they just have to not allow trans men either. Probably quite simple. And the thing is, though, I don't think the legal argument really holds water anyway. If you're to say legally, I'm a trans man, I must be allowed in here, and you don't think it's a trans man, well, at a certain point, it's going to have to be proved whether this person is a trans man or not. And they're not going to be able to prove it if they're a man. So, I mean, any man trying that is like, it's pretty ridiculous. I don't see any way that's going to work.
This anyway, but if they did, it would be much easier for them to pretend to be a trans man who looks like Jamie than it would be for them to pretend to be a trans woman. Again, showing that excluding trans women doesn't reduce the risk to cis women at all.
Doesn't reduce it at all. Don't know about that.
Could in fact increase it.
I mean, I just don't see what trans men are going to want to be going to that gym anyway. It doesn't make any sense. You really want to stick out like a sore thumb? You really want to go somewhere where you know you're probably going to make people feel uncomfortable? It just doesn't make any sense, man.
The final point of how excluding trans women actually harms cis women is that it detracts from the real conversation that needs to be happening, and that's the violence of cis men.
As Natalee's TikTok shows, she is terrified of cis men.
I just think something needs to be put in place because men are terrifying.
With all of this talk and media space of villainizing trans people, you know who are not being scrutinized? Men. With all this policy resource and research resource and community energy.
Plenty of these, like, gender critical types. Literally, that's the whole foundation for it. But okay. Where do we get past the misandry part? Nazi rally, who cares? I want to get back on topic because, like, listen, there is something of a point to that a man might pretend to be a trans man instead of a trans woman. But truthfully, I don't know that they'd let a trans man in because they don't believe that they're a woman. Like, what would a trans man have to do to prove that he is female? You know what I mean? Like, let's say jammidodger wants to go to this gym tomorrow. Like, they're just going to be like, well, no. You're a male as far as we can tell. What's he going to do to, like, prove that he isn't? Like, does he have a legal, like, obligation? Is it not true that a business can reserve the right? Is it not Is it not a thing that the business is going to be able to reserve the right to refuse service to anyone for any reason? So if it's like, I think you're a man, therefore I don't think you can use this service. Well, like, how are you going to prove that you're male? That you're female? Jamie doesn't even think he's female. Like, I don't know. It's not that there's no point here. And it's the best we've got so far. But at the same time, I don't know why trans men would want to use a gym like this in the first place. And they're being a bit selfish in a way if they are, because they must know that they're, you know... Well, I mean, having scars doesn't prove that you're a woman. Having scars doesn't prove you're female. Yeah, I don't see why a trans man would want to use it in the first place. And we've kind of pushed the culture to where it's like, well, I'm a woman even if I'm basically a man anyway. So I don't see why they'd use trans man over trans woman. Like, it's such a mess. It's such a mess. I don't really think that they'd end up accepting trans men into this gym. I don't see how they'd be forced to if they're making it like single sex. I don't know how you'd enforce that kind of thing. I don't know how you'd like, well, you've discriminated against a trans man saying that you're a female-only gym. Like, I feel like they probably will be in their right to reserve. They'll probably be in their right to not serve someone who they have that much, you know, they see that much, like, evidence that someone's a male and decide to turn them away, or turn them away on the grounds that they look male enough that they might make some of the other females there uncomfortable. I have a feeling there's, like, ways around it. So I don't see why a person would do that. And it's not just men pretending to be trans that you need to worry about. You also do, in fact, still need to worry about what a trans woman might do. Because a trans woman is going to be able to do things that another woman can't when it comes to things like sexual assault. And a trans woman is still potentially going to make people uncomfortable because they might have had a similar experience to this Natalee Barnett. I can't imagine any trans man wanting to be on the hypothetical. Me neither. Like, I will give them, it is something of a point. I will see that. But at the same time, I don't know, man. I don't know. Why would you want to go to this gym as a trans man?
Outside of trans conversations, see if they've done anything meaningful at all to progress women's rights in the fields of education, healthcare, equal treatment, equal opportunity.
But all I knew is that I wanted to...
So much soapboxing. Just talk about the thing.
Very confusing because she starts the video by saying she didn't have a clear mission and vision when she mentioned trans inclusion.
Now, when I made that tweet in 2021, I had just announced my plan.
So they showed earlier, like, I didn't have a clear vision, but then the vision was like, oh, I want a gym that's also trans inclusive. But again, so much will have happened since then. So much stuff needs sorting out. So much stuff needs working out legally, logistically, physically, all that kind of stuff. Wouldn't it make a trans man dysphoric to be in an all-female space? You'd think so, yeah. Like I said, I don't know why a trans man would use this kind of thing. If you care about, like, social coherence, and that part of wanting to be seen as a man is that you're seen going in and out of, like, male spaces, stuff like that. So you're not going to go to, like, a female space. It's pretty cringe. But at least it's an actual point that is not, like, just easily dealt with, you know what I mean? But yeah, this person is wanting the gym that is women only that includes trans people, is that a clear vision or is it just the idea? Like, we're getting into semantics here, quite honestly.
To open a women's only gym. I hadn't thought out the vision or the mission or what it would entail, but all I knew is that I wanted to open a gym.
And then ends the video saying that she has to stick to her mission and vision when talking about trans exclusion.
Because it is imperative that I stick to the vision and the mission and ensure that these women feel safe.
So you did have a mission and a vision you wanted to stick to when you were being trans inclusive? If so, why are you saying that you didn't have a mission and what's changed? Very confusing. Understandably, this video got quite a bit of press and a lot of people were...
I don't know. If you use your brain, it's not confusing. Ultimately, it's about wanting to avoid situations that she herself has been in and making sure women feel safe. If she can't enforce that whilst allowing trans women in there, then she's kind of stuck having to get rid of all of them in order to satisfy what will be like the original mission. And that was to make sure that women feel safe and that women are in an environment where they're not worried about being judged or worried about being latched on or whatever, or worried that someone might come in that pretended to be a woman but is actually a man or something like that. I don't know.
Were very unhappy about the total 180. She was very adamantly trans inclusive and now she's not. A few days later, she made this second video, which we'll go through now.
Total 180. Total 180 between 2021 and 2025.
Breakdown.
I just want to come on here and address everything that is circulating on the internet right now, and it's very heavy. It is a lot, and I think a lot has also somewhat been misconstrued. And for anyone that doesn't know what I'm talking about, essentially I posted a video and I said that my women's only gym, the Girls Spot, will be operating as a single sex space, so it'll be female only. So at this current time, it won't be trans inclusive.
I think what's important to mention here is that she didn't just make that first video in isolation. The frustration that she's receiving from that video is because she's done a complete U-turn on trans inclusion, which she'd made multiple videos and posts on prior.
Yeah, years ago.
Especially after fundraising from having said all of that, and especially for citing the reason for the change is to protect cis women, when, as we know, that isn't the case.
No, it is the case. You just don't understand.
Exclusion doesn't protect cis women.
She can't make it work. Like, there still lies the massive question of, well, how do you tell who's a trans woman and who's just a man? I can't include people without potentially including people that I don't want to include. And if I'm to stick to my mission, that's the way to do it.
Preface to say that this decision was not made lightly. It took me 4 years to make this decision, and I spent a great deal of time...
Yeah, they pretend it's a complete 180. This is something she's been like working out for like 4 years.
Speaking to trans women, I spoke to charities, I spoke to Muslim women, I spoke to so many different communities.
So Natalie here has said that it took her 4 years to come to this decision, and her consultations with various groups, including trans women, charities, and Muslim women, have led her to justify trans women's exclusion in the name of cis women's safety. Again, posing it as a decision that took you 4 years to make is very different to...
Well, it's not even just safety, it's like comfort and stuff as well. It's lots of things.
Saying that you very clearly made a decision to be trans inclusive and then did a complete U-turn on it. The decision was made. You fundraised based on that decision. You've gone...
Oh man, he's so stupid.
Marketing awareness based on that decision. If you're then going to change that decision, it feels important to explain exactly where that U-turn has come from.
Yeah, that's what she's trying to do, you fucking retard.
Especially when it comes to taking rights away and excluding people in ways that are legally...
Taking rights away, which they're already doing in the first place by not allowing men in there. Which means that some trans women are going to get mistaken for men because their transition isn't convincing enough. That's going to happen anyway.
Questionable. Who are these trans women who are saying that in order to protect cis women, you have to exclude them, when facts and statistics suggest that this is wrong? Who are these charities?
Well, facts and statistics suggest that trans women follow similar patterns of criminality to males, so you're kind of wrong there, but okay.
Are they LGBT plus specific charities? We're personally aware of a lot of LGBT plus charities around the world. Groups like GLAAD, Stonewall, the Trevor Project, and so many others would not be suggesting that excluding trans women from women's spaces is the right thing to do.
Well, she's not saying that any of them did. She might have been told reasons why to include trans people by those trans people, and then decided that that doesn't stack up against the other concerns that other people have.
To do, or that it would protect cis women.
Further, there's actual government consultations about women's refuges. It was directly answering the question of if trans exclusion is the way to go, and they said no. So who are these people, and particularly charities, that may have been misguiding
Appeal to authority, not interested.
Natalie on this. It's really important to share that information transparently if you're making such a large statement. And if someone like Natalie truly believes that they're doing the right thing and has been advised as such, there should be no problem in being transparent about the information that led you to making that decision. If anything, it will help their credibility and allow them to be held accountable, as all good charities should be. And as far as the Muslim community goes, Natalie back in 2021 did share that she's spoken significantly with Muslim communities, and specifically about the inclusion of trans women.
So this is another thing I wanted to touch on, because I do want Muslim women to feel comfortable at my gym. So if you are a Muslim woman, please comment down below or correct me on anything if I say it incorrectly. But I thought that as a Muslim woman, you can train in front of men so long as you're not wearing tight clothing and you keep your hijab on. Please, like I said, correct me if I am wrong. But if that is the case, then training in front of trans women should be fine if you keep your hijab on and you aren't wearing tight clothing. So please correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought those were kind
You, Mary?
So is he getting upset because she regretted her decision after 4 years of research?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thank you, Asami Yamazaki.
like the principles.
The comments, predominantly from Muslim people.
Yeah, isn't this going to depend on things like denomination, where she's from and stuff like that? As a Muslim woman, if she identifies as a woman, then that's a woman. Well, do you speak for all Muslims? Do you speak for Muslims who are less like integrated or who are less anglicized?
People that she was inviting to hear the stance of were overwhelmingly on the side of trans inclusion. So especially if you're going to shift your accountability.
Yeah, those are just comments, bro. Like, those are just some comments on a fucking TikTok.
Potentially even scapegoat the Muslim community as to why you are excluding a group of people. You need to provide that information of who and what was said, not just that you've spoken.
Well, no, she doesn't need to provide shit. She's refunding anyone that feels cheated. She doesn't actually have to justify her decision whatsoever. It kind of sounds like, oh, well, people should be able to harass the fuck out of you if you don't do what I say. Because she doesn't actually owe any of these people any of this.
Spoken to communities and then only named Muslim communities. There is more to say on this topic of Muslim communities, by the way, which we'll get into shortly.
What really saddens me is that so many people are saying that I'm transphobic. I thoroughly researched. I seek legal advice. I spoke to communities. I spoke to trans women themselves.
Yeah, it seems like Jamie and Shaba's position is, well, if you actually researched, you would have come to the same decision that we did. But they're not the arbiters of what is like good and true, so...
which I found very important to do so, to see how to navigate all of this, because I am not trans.
Natalie's saddened by people saying she's transphobic. The thing is, even if she isn't intending to be, she is factually being transphobic.
I disagree. Trans people are not owed inclusion into every woman's space. Like, I'm sorry, man. She couldn't find a way to make it work. I think intention should matter more than we're pretending it does.
Transphobia is defined as discrimination against, aversion to, or fear of transgender people. And discrimination is the unjust or prejudicial treatment of different categories of people. By
Then you also think that this is misandrist.
banning trans women from accessing a women's space when trans people are not the people doing harm. From statistics to...
Trans people are not the people doing harm. We already know that's not true. You're just lying. So why have studies found that male to females retain a male pattern regarding criminality? Why are studies finding stuff like that? Why are we seeing Ministry of Justice 2020 data? Out of trans women in prison, 76 sex offenders. Whereas out of 3,812 women, 125 sex offenders. 3.3% from 58.9%. In fact, according to this, trans women are overrepresented. From Ministry of Justice data. 76 out of the 129 male-born prisoners identifying as transgender, not counting any with GRCs, have at least one conviction of sexual offense. Yeah, you're just kind of lying with this shit. You're just lying with this shit.
Natalie's own story, it's men who are. The banning of trans women is therefore unjust, which makes it discriminatory, which makes it
No, you haven't shown that. That's stupid.
transphobic. Natalie again says that she spoke...
Trans women are males. Men are males. Trans women are males. We're talking about sexual assault here. And the split when it comes to sexual assault is male and female. Males are more likely to be the perpetrator, especially if something like rape, which in the UK you can't do without a penis. Females are more likely to be the victims of that.
Spoke to various communities, trans people, and sought legal advice. Again, she spoke to trans people in 2021, and on multiple occasions came to the conclusion that they were welcome at her gym. And trans people and allies now, on the video that Natalie had just
came to the conclusion, well, she was still working things out. This is what I mean. Like, oh, she should show her information. Can't you like intuit that she probably ran into issues such as the question about how to tell men from trans women? The stuff like that probably made it impossible in her mind.
Just posted on the 9th of March were overwhelmingly informing Natalie that this wasn't okay. Hence why she's having to make this video in the first place. So again, what changed?
Now to address a legal point.
Yeah, we're hand-waving harassment, by the way. You presume that there were people just harassing her, calling her transphobic. We saw in one of the articles that we read. We're just hand-waving harassment. Oh, well, people are saying it's not okay. Well, people are also harassing her for it. So, and calling someone transphobic over this is kind of harassment.
Natalie said that she sought legal advice. I would so love to see a letter from a lawyer stating that excluding trans women is a fair and reasonable step.
Oh, it's so stupid. So stupid. Why are you entitled to any of this information?
To ensuring cis women's safety at a gym. I have a law degree. I've worked in law firms. I understand how stringent
Oh, thank you, Scott. Thank you so much. Notorious homosexual. I'd love to know what that means.
and confident you need to be to make such absolute statements, and I don't think such a statement would be able to exist. That's because the law doesn't have enough.
Well, you're taking to, like, she spoke to a lawyer, which helped her inform the decision. A lawyer probably didn't say, oh, you have to exclude trans women. Probably not that simple. She doesn't owe you people, like, this kind of transparency. Like, Jesus Christ.
Enough clarity in order to do that. The UK law on discrimination is primarily governed by the Equality Act 2010, and that says that you can't discriminate based on protected characteristics, one of which includes gender reassignment, which covers trans women. And
another one includes sex, which includes men, yet somehow she's still able to exclude males. Do they not look at these things? Do they not look at these, like, oh my God.
Schedule 3, paragraph 27, section 29, and section 19 all essentially state that a service can have arrangements, rules, or procedures in place that treat a protected characteristic group less favourably if there is a proportionate means of achieving a legitimate aim. This need for proportionate means of achieving a legitimate aim is why we can have things like women's only spaces in the first place. A bunch of men might say, oh, isn't a women's only...
Yeah, and woman is a sex term. We have to remember that sex and gender identity are on an equal footing, and that your gender identity doesn't change your sex, and that there's evidence that it doesn't change, like, the criminality, you know what I mean? Oh, you mentioned me on Reddit. Oh, thank you. I never go on Reddit, so I haven't seen it. I'm gonna guess people didn't like you very much for doing that, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
only space discriminatory. It's not, and it's because of these provisions. Factually, there's a lot of statistics that we can use as proof to show that women need safe spaces away from men. So taking such steps are a proportionate means of achieving the legitimate...
They just don't think sex exists. You just think because you identify as something else, that completely changes the entire grid. It doesn't. I'm sorry. Calling yourself a thing really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things.
Aim of protecting women's safety. And it's not just to do with gender. For example, if we look at our housing market, it's legally allowed to indirectly discriminate on matters of age to provide retirement housing at significantly cheaper prices. The thing about law, and why it's not always so black and white, is that it needs to be interpreted. And some people are calling into question what the Equality Act means in matters relating to sex as a protected characteristic, and further, how that protected characteristic differs from gender reassignment as a protected characteristic. There are two big ongoing cases that aim to clarify and provide some of that guidance that we need in terms of how to interpret the Equality Act. One should have a hearing later on this year, and the other one has said since November last year that they will provide a verdict, but it's just not happened yet. It's unlikely, though, that any of those verdicts would change that bit of law that says that we do need proportionate means of achieving legitimate aims when it comes to being allowed to lawfully discriminate. And as we're seeing, there are no...
This person, are they a lawyer? Are they a law expert? I'm going to guess is not the case, but we're supposed to take this person's word for it. Yeah, it's about interpretation. Well, it's very easy to lump trans women in with males when they are males, and therefore the positive sex discrimination, whatever we're calling it, of allowing a woman's only space still kind of holds. Because the problem is, there's no consistent, like, what's like the legal definition of like what a trans woman is versus what a man is, you know what I mean?
No significant statistics that trans women harm cis women. Unlike the many...
No, there are. There fucking are. Like, there literally are.
significant statistics that show that cis men harm all women, which really highlight...
And it's very easy to like brush the minority offenders under the rug because there's so much more information about a much larger group. Wow. Amazing. Incredible.
the questionable legality of the girl spot banning trans women. So despite Natalee's phrasing here, which could very easily be interpreted, and was interpreted by me, as saying, look guys, I've consulted lawyers, it's cool, I can see that this is the right thing to do. The fact is, no respectable lawyer would say, yeah, that's totally legal.
Who is this person to say that? Is this person a law expert? Who are they to say that this makes any fucking sense whatsoever? Like, does gender reassignment trump sex when it comes to rights? Literally said sex on there and you acknowledged it. Therefore, you can kind of easily join the dots as to how they might be able to do that legally. Like, no lawyer would make that statement. Like, how the fuck would you know? What do you know about law?
In fact, previous case law has predominantly fallen in favour of trans inclusion.
Yeah, Roxy Tickle is not from the UK.
A lawyer would say, yeah, that's totally legal. In fact, previous case law has predominantly...
Like, Roxy Tickle. So what? Someone in Australia? What's that got to do with any of this shit? Trans woman wins settlement from gym that refused her use of women's locker room. Scotland. Not limited to biological or birth sex, but included those in possession of a gender recognition certificate. Jesus Christ. Like, it's a bit messed up that legally you can, like, lie on your shit now. I think that's pretty crazy.
Fallen in favour of trans inclusion.
The second and more complicated problem is that even if the girl spot were able to prove that there was a proportionate means to ban trans women, with these magical statistics that nobody seems to be able to provide that prove that trans women are a danger to cis women.
Yeah, you just don't look for anything you don't like. You don't go looking for anything that might challenge your worldview. So you just say it doesn't exist. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Like, how many lies have we caught this fucking person in?
Because they're not. They're still obligated under the Equality Act, Section 29, to make sure that other discrimination does not stem from this. And this seems impossible, because as we've already shown you with many examples, cis women are at an increased risk of being harassed directly because of trans exclusion. When a cis woman is accused of being a trans woman because she doesn't fit this pretty, perfect picture of womanhood, and people attempt to kick her out, that cis woman can take legal action against the girl spot gym for being discriminated
Yeah, but that's assuming anything like that would happen.
Against. That harassment may be considered discrimination under the Equality Act. All of this to say, we've no idea who Natalee's talking about in terms of who she's consulted, and this should really be transparent. At best, she's been...
Why? Why does she owe you any of this information? Otherwise you'll sick your weird fan cult on her? Because you have to imagine, at least a few of these people have been like having a go at this Natalee woman. Like, they don't owe you shit. That she has to provide, on what measure? By what measure?
Being really badly advised by lawyers, charities, and even the trans community. And at worst, Natalee might be saying this to try to shift accountability away from her decision, which is, any way you look at it, objectively transphobic, even if she doesn't mean to be.
So,
whatever, bro. Whatever, bro. Utterly retarded. But it's not sexist to insist that women have to work out around men, when the whole thing is to try and move away from that. And by your own admission, you can't actually meaningfully distinguish between a man and a trans woman. They've admitted this. They've admitted there's no way of policing it. If you were to allow trans women in, and a trans man, and a man is going to say he's a trans woman, you expect people to believe them. Like, you've not said as much, but I can intuit that very easily. That's what you want. For men to be able to say they're women, and for people not to question them. But there's no way of distinguishing between men and trans women. Excuse me. Jamie knows absolutely nothing about trans women. Yeah, I'm getting that impression. Wasn't there an incident recently regarding nurses? Yeah. There's been quite a few, actually. There was people in Darlington. There was that Sandy Peggy. I don't know, man. Oh, hi, aloha te. If you use Discord, you can join my Discord and you can message it to me. They should put pictures of these two next to the word fanatic in the dictionary. Yeah, this is like fanaticism. This is like ideologue shit, for definite. A nurse here recently got punished for calling a pedo mister. Oh, I saw something about that. Yeah, ridiculous.
Obviously, the decision to make it was not based on excluding any individuals. It wasn't based on malice, nothing of the sort. The decision was based on the simple fact that I have been sexually assaulted inside of a gym. That is why I stand here as a women's only gym owner. I was sexually...
Yes, and they're very sympathetic about that, but...
assaulted inside of a gym, which means a lot of trauma and a lot of emotion and well-being is behind.
Did they actually like film themselves just sat there for like B-roll? Are they just like sat staring at each other? What the fuck?
This project, this is not just a gym. Like, so many of the women that are coming to my women's only gym is because they have also been sexually assaulted or sexually harassed or faced gym intimidation inside mixed gyms and faced that by men.
We've said this before, but you can never say it enough times. It is absolutely horrible to hear that women are being assaulted.
Oh, I hate this so much. I hate these fake pretenses of empathy. It's just so dodgy. I know you don't believe it. You care more about letting men into a women's gym than about the fact that this person was actually assaulted. You're trying to make a very complicated thing extremely simple. Well, anything you do that's remotely, like, not trans affirming is transphobic, actually, so you have to do what we want. And we want full disclosure and full transparency for everything that led you to this point, as if she fucking owes any of you people that. Ugh. And this person calls himself a feminist. Like, what a joke.
It is disgusting that this happens in gyms in such a repeated way, and as Natalie rightfully points out, that's men doing that. So yes, illegally
and you can't tell men from trans women. It makes so much sense. It's so easy to come to a sensible conclusion on this.
morally fantastic measure of making a women's only gym is not discriminatory to men, giving them a space to train away from the group that significantly statistically harms them.
How do you distinguish between the trans woman and the man then? You've already said that you can't. Like, I guess we just don't answer any very obvious questions that don't benefit our narrative here.
As a reminder, trans people are included in the gym intimidation report statistics of who men cause harm to in gym settings. And even in general statistics away from just gyms, trans women often face more discrimination and harm than cis women do at the hands of.
How much of this, by the way, is trans people doing it to each other? Just out of interest. And how many of these, things like trans, like sex workers of color, which I'm not saying excludes, I'm not saying that makes any of it better or that those people deserve it or some shit. Of course they don't. But like, there's kind of explanations as to why some of this stuff happens. And like a white transsexual like me is probably not at the same higher likelihood of getting assaulted than plenty of other types of trans women.
Of cis men. That's even more reason to include them in your space, as Natalie was clearly a very persistent and
Okay, so how do you tell the difference between one and the other? You've already said that we can't. Holy shit.
knowledgeable advocate for.
So it's very important to know that this was not an easy decision. I didn't just wake up, I didn't just say, oh, no trans women allowed. Like, I've really thought this through.
It really seemed that with Natalie's multiple posts advocating for trans inclusion, that she'd already really thought it through.
100,000% trans women are welcome at my gym.
And with all the facts we've shown you that
and then thought it through some more and changed her mind. What a terrible crime that she must now answer for.
it actually hurts cis women to exclude trans women. It really doesn't feel like this U-turn to ban trans women has been well thought through.
And like when I made that tweet,
So she didn't do it as a U-turn. Well, you're just calling it a U-turn anyway. Okay. Thought we're supposed to listen to women about their own issues, but you didn't want to.
In 2021 about being trans inclusive, I had just started this project. I was 21 years old, or 20 years old actually at the time. And what the girl spot meant then is not what the girl spot means now.
Now this point here really frustrates me because the more we read over this, the more it doesn't feel like it makes sense. And for the record, when you're aged 20 to 21, you're not a child. You know what you're doing. In fact, you know what you're
I'm not saying that. She was younger. Her perspectives have changed. Oh my God.
doing, so much so you've written a manifesto, a briefing page that's on a fundraiser to raise tens of thousands of pounds for your cause, a gym that you have advertised and promoted as being trans inclusive. At the age of 2021,
We're gonna show those same fucking screenshots like so many times. Oh my God, we get it. She said in 2021 that she wanted to include trans people. We get it. She said that in 2021. Hey guys, do you remember when she said that in 2021? We fucking get it, okay? You don't have to post it every single time and then pretend that nothing could have possibly happened, no conversations, no issues needing resolving, working out, could possibly have led her to this fucking conclusion. And you want to see full proof of every single conversation they had. Oh man. Hi Kitty Cat, I hope you're good.
You're old enough to vote, you're old enough to drive, you're old enough to work, you're old enough to do anything around the world, especially at 21, that any adult can do. And in those promotional messages where you're talking about the gym, you talk about how at the age of 18, this really powerful experience has led you from then to know that you want to start a women's only gym. In Natalee's words, her negative experience is what fueled this mission. And if that experience happened at the age of 18, tell me how you're now saying between 2021 and 2025, things have changed from being a victim of assault. The other side of the very problematic nature.
Well, that hasn't changed. It's how to make her business run. Bearing in mind, when she was talking about all this stuff, it was in concept. Since then, she will have had to have worked out, like, the logistics, the legality of it. Things like, how can I include trans women, but not include men? And presumably have struck out because there isn't a way, as you people have admitted. Like, oh, it's so gross. It's so disgusting. It's so nasty. Like, do you think that someone should never change their mind on anything ever? And do you think that if someone does change their mind, that they owe you or anyone else an explanation, evidence of why it is they've changed? Otherwise, what? You'll send your fans, all you people will call them a transphobe and harass her, which is what's happened, apparently.
Nature of saying that an assault that happened.
How do we not know that something else happened at a gym or something between those times? Well, who knows? I mean, she hasn't mentioned that another incident has happened, and I thought she would have. But that doesn't even matter. Like, we're talking about working something out in concept and then having to now start making that a reality. A lot more questions are going to come up. A lot more issues. So there could have been any number of things that led her to believe that she couldn't make it work to keep men out, but allow trans women in. And if you allow both groups in, then you're still allowing men into your women-only space. So the only recourse is to not allow males in. Like, it's preposterous. It's completely, all of this is so unnecessary. Why do we need a over an hour long video? Like, Jesus Christ. It like just goes on and on and on. And like, what, we're going to get some examples of Muslim women saying, oh, well, I think trans women should be in the gym. Well, do you know that every woman's going to feel that way? Why are these TRAs focusing on this one lady so hard? Because she's an evil, bigoted transphobe. Give it up, just go to another gym. It's such a privileged position to be fighting on. I agree. Like, I don't know, man. We've already said other gyms are trans inclusive, so go to another fucking gym. I don't know, man.
Happened by a man, therefore means that you can exclude trans women, is how close.
Trans women are a type of man, by the way. Trans women are a type of man. Because trans women are male. You're a type of gender non-conforming man.
Paralleled that experience and that narrative is to one of the biggest transphobes in the world, J.K. Rowling. Her personal negative experience with a man is
guilt by association, no one cares.
When people not only become a leading footballer of the cis women, helping cis women, the assaulting
Many classes in my video that
used to discriminate and exclude groups of women that are not part of the assaulting.
Groups of women, which you can't tell, that are indistinguishable by men, from men, sorry. Groups of women that are indistinguishable from men. Jesus Christ. I am all for someone wanting to do whatever to their space. If I'm not welcome, then I can go and give my time, money to someone who includes me. Yeah, same. You don't want to include trans people? Fine, I won't go to your fucking establishment. It's okay. Yeah, rays get one guide so hard. That is true. I suppose I can't really talk. I get one guide frequently. Actually, it's been a while. I don't get one guide very much at the moment. I'm saying that now. Someone is going to immediately one guide me. And the women who don't feel safe will just remove themselves, exclude themselves, and not speak out. That is also true. Like, you become another place that lets males in. And someone is not happy being around males, irrespective if they identify as a woman or identify as a fucking mule deer. I don't know, man. Someone's getting excluded, whatever happens, unfortunately.
Group. And that's why I said in my video that I'm labelling it as a single sex space and it'll be female only, because I want to do so many classes around self-defense so that women can defend themselves against men, so that like boxing and Muay Thai is so incredibly important at the girls' spot.
You know who else alongside cis women needs self-defense from cis men? Trans women. Statistics show that trans women are more likely to be abused than cis women, and this is across.
By who?
Alongside cis women need self-defense from cis men. Trans women. Statistics show that trans women are more
This isn't anything. This is a tightly cropped nothing. Transgender women and men have higher rates of violent victimization. This isn't showing that it's from man. Transgender people over 4 times. Oh, we've seen this how many times now? How do we know? What does one guy mean? Being one guy means that one guy in chat is like derailing your whole stream because you're arguing with them instead of streaming about what you are supposedly there to stream about. Like, I don't know. We're not showing that it's from men. And we've also got evidence that trans women can also find themselves victimizing women. I mean, who was that Karen White person? Karen White, Katie Dolotowski. How many of these people are there? Who knows?
Today we're talking...
That is the wrong video. I don't have time to look at that. Thank God, because it would have annoyed me anyway.
More likely to be abused than cis women, and this is across the field.
Yeah, you could start a self-defense class for trans women, or trans women can very easily go to self-defense classes that anyone can go to. You know what I mean? Why not just go to one of them? I started to watch Queer Kiwi's video on this. Jeez, good luck to you. Oh, it's probably not as bad. Nothing is as bad as fucking jammidodger. I looked at the comments. A lot of them claiming this gym will cause SA because how would they know they're trans unless they check genitals? Well, it's not going to matter because they're not allowing them in anyway, so. It'd be called take offense classes. Here's trans self-defense. You teach them how to log off the fucking internet.
To look at these statistics on domestic violence, 7.5% of cis women compared to 60.
Showing no proof, just opinions that don't equate to proof. Well, they're claiming to show like statistics and stuff like that. But these are very generalized. Like, you know, this all might be true, but doesn't really necessarily have anything to do with the actual subject at hand. And it feels like we're on the subject one sec, and we just fly off into a tangent, which is very generalized, and doesn't actually necessarily speak to the situation at hand.
16% of trans women. And this isn't at all to pit cis women against trans women, it's just to highlight that trans women could really benefit from these classes too. And Natalie...
They can go to fucking self-defense classes. Why do they have to go to these specific self-defense classes at this specific gym? It doesn't make any sense. Are there not enough classes out there? Are there not enough self-defense classes that are co-ed? Anyone can join? Like, how many trans women are there that have that kind of trauma around men that they need to be in like women-only spaces? How many of them even exist? Like, who are we actually like helping here? Trans women can go to fucking self-defense classes. I don't fucking care what you're talking about. Stonewall. Oh yeah. If Stonewall said it, it must be true.
Repeatedly suggested she knew this.
100%.
And the thing is, plenty of the stuff they're showing probably is true, like the statistics and stuff like that. But it's often not really shown why it has much of anything to do with this actual situation. Like, just because there's a generalized thing that shows that trans people are at certain risks more so than cis people, that says nothing as to why someone who was assaulted at a gym by a man who is a woman now wants to form a gym where other women can come and not have the same experience that she did. And if that means excluding all males, then that might have to be just how it is, because it's going to be difficult to tell. It's going to be difficult to tell which males are women and which males are men. You know what I mean? That's the weirdest sentence I've ever fucking uttered.
1,000% trans women are welcome at my gym.
I want to do classes on like PCOS and like hormone imbalances and training on our menstrual cycle. So it is very much female orientated, you know?
It's incredible that this gym is planning to offer such nuanced classes. I have PCOS and I know firsthand just how much exercise and lifestyle can have a huge impact on my mental health, on my physical well-being, and it is not spoken about enough because women's health is not researched enough. 1 in 4 women have PCOS, and whilst this is a huge number, it is not every woman.
1 in 4 women have PCOS. Stats vary from 1 in 4 to 1 in 10. Fuck me, man. Fuck me. Why do you do this? Why do you do this? Even your editing is having to point out all the inaccuracies in the shit you're saying. And I probably missed a ton of inaccuracies. Because if I were to go through every single claim that they make, It would take forever. It's bad enough that I have to like literally prove that there are in fact men that will dress up as women in order to commit crimes in women's spaces. Like literally it's happened. Sorry, bro. No amount of saying it never happens and never looking into it, because of course you didn't fucking look into it. You're not going to look into anything that doesn't confirm your worldview. I don't think they looked at all before making half the shit that they state. I think they're just finding like things that that confirm their worldview. Whereas, I don't know, man. I would at the very least be able to understand like some of the counterpoints. Things like women that end up getting like harassed in like toilets for looking feminine, for not looking feminine enough or whatever, looking like a man. I can at least acknowledge that that shit exists and is bad. But like, fuck me.
And that means that this class is not suitable for all cis women. Does that mean that the Girl Spot gym should be excluding anybody who doesn't have PCOS just because they can't attend this class?
And
you see what I mean? You don't have to jump to the craziest, like, extreme position on everything. Like, women that don't have PCOS might not want to go to specific classes. They can probably still show up to the gym. And I don't know, just use the weights or the equipment or something, instead of going to the PCOS class that is not beneficial to them because they don't have fucking PCOS. I have a feeling a gym probably has more room, has enough room, that they can hold a PCOS specific thing, and then other women that don't have PCOS can still show up, use the equipment, lift some weights, whatever.
4 women have PCOS, and whilst this is a huge number, it is not every woman, and that means that this class is not suitable for all cis women. Does that mean that
this is utterly retarded? Yeah, they're going to hold certain classes for specific people. There's probably still room for other people to go and do other stuff. Or like, go to the gym on a different day where there isn't that class. Like, this is so stupid. Like, just because they hold a PCOS specific class once a week, let's say, that doesn't mean they then now have to exclude all other women than PCOS women. Like, so stupid. So stupid.
That the Girl Spot gym should be excluding anybody who doesn't have PCOS just because they can't attend this class?
And you know who else can have PCOS? Trans men. Does this mean that Natalee plans to open the Girl Spot?
If a trans woman commits a crime, they're just a cis man. Yep, according to these people. Well, unfortunately, it happens. Unfortunately, these people exist. Have done some fucked up things. This person started as a male and then carried on when incarcerated. How nice.
On a wig and
a women's only gym to trans men? I highly doubt it. Natalee also mentions classes on hormonal imbalance.
Should be excluding anybody who doesn't have PCOS just because they can't attend this class?
And you know who else can have PCOS? Trans men. Does this mean that Natalee plans...
But men aren't allowed, Jamie. And why would a trans man go to that gym, give themselves dysphoria, actively make people uncomfortable potentially? Doesn't make any sense, bro.
To open the Girl Spot, a women's only gym to trans men? I highly doubt it. Natalee also mentions classes on hormonal imbalance.
Well, I mean, it probably will be open to trans men who have done nothing but identify as a man. But then you're not going to be like, well, I'm actually a man, but I'm really a woman, so can I come in, please? Like, you still pass as a woman, so you just fucking go in. And trans men are female, so they're not part of that, like, that group that is apparently the heightened risk. Unfortunately, trans women are part of the male group. Like, the trans woman man distinction is not made whatsoever. And we're just saying, oh, there's no evidence, there's no statistics. Well, why would I trust you on that? Why would I trust an ideologue? Why would I trust someone so heavily biased to do my research for me?
Balance and training on your menstrual cycle. Both things that, one, can be relevant to trans people, but also...
A trans woman with a beard can claim they have PCOS. I guess that's true. I don't know, man. I have a feeling that... Well, I mean, all of that's going to be irrelevant because you're going to be able to tell that this person's a male. I imagine if you're actually genuinely a woman who gets mistaken for a man a lot, when going somewhere like here, you probably would bring additional, like, documentation or whatever with you to make sure that you can prove it. Otherwise, you'll probably get denied service.
Also, too, both things that do not always impact every cis woman. Women who've gone through menopause or who've had a hysterectomy due to medical reasons such as cancer aren't menstruating. Does this mean that you're banning older cis women or women with
No.
hysterectomies from your gym?
This is so retarded. No, there's specific classes to do with, like, periods. Just don't attend that specific class. Go there and lift weights. Go on a different day where they're doing a thing that is actually for you. Like, I don't know, man. Like, does a gym, if it has classes, does that typically take over the whole gym? I'm not sure. But if they want to have specific days for specific things, like, that's up to them. And if that's the case, you're banning other women for, like, what, 1 day a week or something. So go on a different day. Well, this day is reserved for these women. Here are the available options for you. So you're not banning anyone. And this is like, what is it? What is the fallacy where because this, therefore you have to go the complete, like, extreme opposite end? Like, whatever that is. This is, like, so stupid. No one's saying any of this.
No.
Sophie Butler, an incredible creator who
No.
you should absolutely be following if you don't already. She's a wonderful
Sophie Butler.
disability advocate and just an all-round good egg. Took the time out to explain to Natalie in response to this
Natalie, I say this as someone who has a lot of respect for you. I'm just very disappointed in your approach on this. I hate this person already. I totally get the passion and emotion around a driving force. I'm a survivor of SA too, but to basically infer that association of trans women with SA is so dangerous, it's not. The association of trans women with men, because trans women and men are all male. It's so dangerous, even if that's not what you intended to do. Also, you even implicitly doing this makes you whatever. That's what your video does. I didn't hear that. I think this person's talking shit. Trans women themselves also experience massive amounts of SA and harassment. Is that her fault? Is that her responsibility? I don't think it is. Not to mention the issues of actually enforcing this. Well, how do you enforce making sure that trans women get in, but men don't? I guess no one's ever going to fucking answer that, so there's no point in asking it. Over and over again. This person's an idiot too. No wonder this person is like... No wonder Shaba is, like, referencing this person, because they're also an idiot. I love the idea of it being more than a gym with classes and sessions, but opening the space to trans women doesn't mean you couldn't run those classes, but they're not actually with them. She's literally making the fucking argument that I did. The people that didn't fit just wouldn't attend those. So you already know that she's not going to ban everyone that doesn't have PCOS or ban everyone that's not menstruating. Like, Jesus Christ, they just contradict their own fucking points so fucking often. The best they could do is, well, so you're gonna ban all non-menstruating women? And then this person literally makes that point. But the problem is, how do you open up the space to trans women and then still exclude men? Is going to be almost impossible. There are many cis women who don't have periods. That hopefully wouldn't mean they couldn't attend your space. Well... And this person is, like, also contradicting themselves. Like, this is stupid. Of course you're, like, doing this. Of course you're, like, bringing this up. Because this person is as dumb as you are.
This video in a really considered way that as a woman in a wheelchair, she does not go to every single gym class that her gym offers, like spin class.
So you already understand, so why make those points then? Why make those stupid points about excluding women that don't have, like, PCOS? When you already know. Because someone has already made that point. That
classes. But that doesn't mean that she should be excluded from the gym overall. There are always going to be parts of any service offered to you, really, that may
yes, but it's women only. It's for females.
not seem relevant to you specifically, whether that be because of a characteristic or even simply a preference. So this is no justification at all to exclude trans women from a women's only gym. Tyra.
Yeah, no, the justification is you want women in there and not men. That's why you'd do that.
A professional basketball player who shared that she's actually followed Natalie for quite a while and really invested in the idea of this women's only gym, shared this.
In the video where she's explaining why.
Oh, so we've got all these disappointed people. Oh, well, it's mean you're discriminating against trans people because these two idiots need other people saying the same shit as them to help hammer their point in. Like, oh my God, other people have hectored them. Well done. What you aren't realizing, you have now made your space unsafe for all women. That doesn't track at all. What does that even mean? How are you going to enforce this? How do you know who is trans and who isn't? How are you going to know which men are trans women and which men are men? Ah, Jesus Christ. Especially applies to black women. She is a fucking black woman. I think she can probably fucking work that one out. Like, you're pretending that she doesn't even have that. Jesus Christ.
Specifically are at a higher risk.
I am one single independent gym owner. My gym is tiny, you know, I'm nowhere near the size of like LA Fitness or David Lloyd's if you're in the UK. Like, I'm one very, very small gym.
Imagine saying,
yeah, all of which trans people can still go to, by the way.
To a court of law, oh, I know I'm being illegal, but it's okay because I'm really small. Clearly, size
You haven't shown illegality. Nothing close.
of operation is not a justifiable reason for exclusion. If you aren't ready to operate legally and without discrimination, you aren't ready to operate.
Imagine if a gym owner said, actually,
Basically what he's saying is here, you have to find a way of including trans women. Otherwise you shouldn't open. Well, if you can't legally find a way of like making sure that men don't access but trans women do, even though there's no distinction between the two of them, then you shouldn't operate. You have to do that and find a legal way of doing it. What if that's not really possible? Like, what if the only way to make sure that males aren't going to access the gym and potentially victimize a female is to just ban all males? What if she's not willing to compromise on that? What if trans women just go to a different gym that is not this one?
actually, although I have been campaigning for a really inclusive gym space that allows all women, including trans women and hijabi women and disabled
Which you've already said exists, by the way.
women to come and enjoy and make use of this safe space. My community have actually told me that they're uncomfortable with the idea of hijabi women being here. They don't like the idea of modesty being pushed upon them. And because I've been assaulted by men, I'm concerned that maybe a cis man could wear
Okay, this is a really stupid analogy.
a hijab or a niqab and use that as a way to get into the gym.
Yeah, there's a reason why no one says this, because typically the sexual assault stuff is overwhelmingly males victimizing females, not hijabi women victimizing anyone else.
And because I'm a small business owner, I actually can't afford to have a separate section for hijabis, and I've come to list that.
I know a lot of people said, why don't you have trans-only hours?
These two are like the most passive-aggressive people. Oh God, I wouldn't be able to stand like any time at all in either of these people's presence.
Or a trans space inside of the gym. Like, the gym is tiny, it's a very boutique gym, and like I'm very limited, you know, and I don't have the capital and all of that. So whilst I understand the anger around backtracking in terms of what I said in 2021, like I do feel bad about that, but the reason why it is...
Yeah, she's not very masculinized, but also she probably understands black women decently well, being one of those herself. This is exactly how and why the big companies love DEI, forces the small companies out of business. Hey, maybe.
It's female only is so incredibly important.
So the only
Oh, they don't have arguments, I doubt. Just sit and seethe in separate rooms for days on end.
new info here is Natalie sharing that her lack of capital means that she can't have
That was a joke, by the way.
trans spaces or a trans-only hour. Again, a segregated trans space would actually be quite a bad idea because there's no need to alienate groups that are not a threat. Just like it would be so wrong to have
Yeah, but your evidence for they're not a threat is nothing. You're just saying that there isn't evidence that they are a threat. But the problem is, if you go looking, you might find... I'm sure there was something. Hang on. I downloaded something, but I don't know how to... Don't know how to access it right now. I don't know. The truth is, you're saying there's no evidence that trans women ever victimize women. Well, unfortunately, they do. Like, shit, just because the people reporting on it are often people like fucking Redux or something, does that mean those things didn't happen? They probably happened, that's the thing. Like, who is this? Michael Williams, Bunny Autumn Colasimone. Threatening female inmates had to be removed. I guess whenever you show them anything like this, they're just like, oh, that's not a real trans woman or something like that. But then they've already admitted, once again, that there's no discernible difference between men and trans women anyway. So, hey.
A space in a gym that I would have to go to as a woman of colour that was separate to the white women that also attended the gym. Where because I was a woman of colour, I also wasn't allowed to enter that space in that area where white women also
shopping earlier or how cinemas have hours for pen.
It's weird how Shaba seems to think that if she talks about other things in the same cadence and tone as she's talking about the trans thing, then that means that must be comparable somehow. Like, you're just missing the point. No one's talking about race because women can be any race. Being a certain race doesn't then make you male. Can't we just talk about the subject?
Pensioners and families. It's sweet and can literally be done. Importantly, pensioners can provide a
girls and women to feel so safe. Like, this is very much coming from a trauma and assault perspective. Like I said, like, I don't know if I would be standing here today if I wasn't sexually assaulted inside of a gym. Like, that was my driving force, and like, I feel like so many people have looked over it, which really upsets me also, because like, that was such a huge thing. You know, like, any woman that experiences sexual assault in any degree is awful, and I'm getting so much hate and so much comments and everything, and I feel like nobody's really understanding that.
Yeah, they're gonna gloss over this shit. She's actually getting upset, like getting like harassed, getting hate. But these kind of people, whenever they mention like harassment from like pro-trans people, it's like, oh, well, there's people criticizing you. And it's like, no, it's not just that. There'll be people criticizing. There'll also be people harassing. And that goes on both sides. Like, when it's gender critical, like supporters or those people themselves. Yes, some of them are fucking harassers.
It's awful, and I'm getting so much hate and so much comments and everything, and I feel like nobody's really understanding that I've been a victim of insane like harassment, intimidation, assault, and it's been awful.
For the record, giving any woman or anybody for that matter a hard time just for talking about their experiences of assault or harassment is such a nasty thing to do. Separately from this though, anybody's trauma and assault experiences from men does not give them the right to be exclusionary to trans women.
How does it not give them the right? What, because you've said so? What determines a right in your mind, Shaba?
Trans women do not deserve for you to conflate them with the predatory men that you fear, and doing so.
Well, they have to be conflated with men because they are a type of man. They are men. They are male. That doesn't mean you have to conflate them with predatory men. But at the same time, you don't seem too bothered about conflating men with predatory men. Well, plenty of men are not predatory, but you've got no problem lumping them in. You've got no problem sounding like a rank misandrist. You've got no problem saying things like men are the problem and not predatory men are the problem. So you'll loop in all men with predatory men, but not trans women. Why? What's the distinction? Trans women can be predators too. We know this. What a pick-me. Yeah, true.
So detracts from the very important conversation of holding predatory men to account. When society's ready to have that conversation about
yeah, what about predatory trans women who are also predatory men? Because trans women are men. What about them? How many of them have you ever held to account? None. You're pretending they don't exist. Therefore, playing cover for them. Trans women might be more likely to get away with that kind of shit because people like you running around pretending there's never been any threat ever from a trans woman to another woman, to an actual woman, whatever the fuck. Shaba oozes privilege. Yep. I mean, these people are middle class plus British people with high levels of education. There's not much more privilege, but hey, watching them make clicks on bullying a woman who's simply living a life doing her thing. Yeah, true. All of this is so unnecessary and so ridiculous.
Predatory men, you best know that trans women will be there supporting you because they experience it too.
And I just say all this to say, like, this was not...
Will they?
From the very important conversation of holding predatory men to account. When society's ready to have that conversation about predatory men, you best know that trans women will be...
Yeah, as if we don't hear about this all the time.
...there supporting you because they experience it too.
And I just say...
Yeah, they also perpetrate it too, but you're pretending that doesn't happen.
All this to say, like, this was not a light...
And again, like... you're happy to lump all men in with predatory men. So I don't know, man.
This was not me plucking this out of thin air or wanting to exclude trans women.
It's important to note here that Natalie's saying that she doesn't want to exclude trans women. If you don't want to exclude trans women, then why are you choosing to exclude trans women?
Well, I think she's trying to explain, and you're doing your best to not understand and not listen and misconstrue everything she says and twist her words beyond recognition, before then soapboxing on some dumb shit that doesn't actually have anything to do with this topic.
This wording here feels a little gaslighty and definitely feels like shifting account.
This is like fucking projection coming from this motherfucker. Gaslighting. All you do is gaslight people, Jamie. That's your entire video. That's your entire channel.
Accountability.
I've spoken to
Like, how many times have I heard Jamie fucking outright lie on this video?
so many. I even spoke to charities, you know. So yeah, I just wanted to clear it up and offer clarity on why I am doing this.
Real clarity would be providing transparency on who these charities are and why
Which she doesn't owe you.
you've made this decision.
Because if she were to reveal this kind of information, you just use that as another reason to attack her, like you are doing now. Someone like that doesn't owe you shit. And I hope she never produces any of that shit, because she doesn't owe it to anyone. Just because you don't want men in your space, just because you don't want male people in your space, that doesn't mean you now have to show some YouTuber dickhead your receipts. She ain't got no fucking... She's got no obligation to any of that shit.
Backed up with genuine facts that prove trans women are a threat to cis women's safety. There's a reason no one's provided this. It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist? It doesn't exist? Okay, so, Ministry of Justice data is not real, I guess. I don't know. You can't trust people like this saying the evidence doesn't exist. What it means is either they've gone looking for it, found it, and are pretending it doesn't exist, or they've never gone looking for it, or they made some half-hearted attempt and are now pretending it doesn't exist. I don't know. You can't trust. If someone says, oh, there's no evidence for this, you don't know that that's true. The only recourse you have is to immediately check, because someone like this might be lying to you.
And the real true meaning behind the girl spot and everything that will be going on inside. I know to many people, everyone thinks it's just a gym that will have, a treadmill or two and women can just come down. No, like there are workshops, activations, events, classes that are so specific to feeling more equipped. I'm partnering with women in safety charities that sell certain things like panic alarms, rape alarms, because I care so much about women's safety.
Do you know who else could really benefit from the collaborations of women's safety charities and from panic alarms and from
Trans women?
Safety alarms? Trans women.
Oh, and the same screenshot for the millionth time.
So yeah, I just wanted to put this out there and like clear it up of sorts.
Would Jamie want to be locked in a cell with Karen White? Probably, because trans women aren't a threat to anyone ever.
Or just really dive into why I'm doing this and why I've taken this stance. And like I said, everyone deserves a safe space. Trans women deserve a safe space, but it's just a really obviously tough realm to navigate as one single independent person.
This really feels
Oh, we're watching two people working together on a video and watching this woman's explanation. So the woman, the black woman in the clips doesn't want trans women in their female-only gym. And these two people are arguing why that's bad, actually.
It was like a 5-minute video of excuses and empty justifications to shift the accountability away from Natalie. And
accountability for what? She doesn't want trans women in her gym, so she's not going to let them in.
As if it's a decision that's been taken out of her hands. Things like, I'm just a small independent gym owner. Everyone deserves a safe space. I want to include trans women.
Like, this is the thing, acting as if it's been taken out of her hands. You don't know. You're saying you want transparency. You want to see what led her to this decision, but are then going to pretend that it must not exist.
This really feels like a 5-minute video of excuses and empty justifications.
You don't know what's been happening for the fucking 4 years between then and now. And you're saying you want greater transparency. How are you then going to say, oh, well, these are just empty promises and someone avoiding accountability? Well, you don't know, because you don't know what's been going on that has led her to this decision. And you've been pretty clear about that because you're saying you want transparency. But now you suddenly know. Now you know that there is no problem and that she's just being transphobic. Is that what we're saying?
To shift the accountability away from Natalie and act as if it's a decision that's been taken out of her hands. Things like...
Yeah, how do you know it's not? Because she hasn't shown any of the receipts. By your own admission. Stop fucking contradicting yourself every 2 seconds, I beg you.
I'm just a small independent gym owner. Everyone deserves a safe space. I want to include trans women. I've spoken to charities, which by the way she said 3 times. All of this is designed unintentionally
Wow, you can count.
or otherwise to view this as a decision that was taken away from Natalie, when in reality this was a decision that was entirely within her control.
The comments.
How do you know? How do you know any of that? How do you know all the legal ins and outs of running a female-only space? You know none of this. You people are full of shit. You don't know any of that. What fucking female-only space have you tried to fucking open? What lawyers have you spoken to trying to break this shit down? You haven't spoken to any. You've just got Shaba over here giving her best lawyer impression, not knowing a fucking thing what she's talking about, by the way. Like, oh my God. I'm actually like so fucking grossed out. I actually like, oh man. The only answer they want is to break this girl and make her change her views and shit on her for changing them. I guess. I'm exhausted by this, quite honestly. I think this is actually quite fucking foul. Like, the amount of times these people contradict themselves or make a point that is immediately dealt with by something else and then go on to acknowledge that suddenly. I don't know, man. Oh, apparently these aren't a new thing. I mean, the redneck South, not the same as the UK, obviously. I can't wait for the day Monty and Jamie make a video together and Mary has an aneurysm on stream. Yeah, but it'd be like that. It'd be like that. I don't know, man. I think this person is being treated pretty fucking horribly. We're not engaging with the fact that trans women are males, that trans women follow more similar criminality patterns to men, and that there's no way of actually telling who from who when it comes to men and trans women, because the differences are basically nothing. The difference is how you identify, and you can't show identity. Therefore, how can you show who's a man and who's a trans woman? And if you want to keep males out altogether, your best bet is to keep all males out. That's just how it is. And we're acting like this woman owes someone an explanation, when the explanation is fairly simple. She has very severe trauma around this shit, wants to make sure that her space allows people with that similar trauma to work out free of, free of those kind of stresses, free of those kind of worries. And if the only way of doing that in her mind, bearing in mind she will have spoken to people, she will have been spending years working out all the logistics of this kind of shit. If that's the decision she's come to, then as a trans woman, you can just go to another gym. She's even offered refunds to people that felt misled, which is the right thing to do. I agree with that. If someone backed you on the basis that they think it's going to be trans inclusive and it's not, and fair enough, yeah, maybe you should give them a refund, but she's doing so. Actually nasty. There's a comment stating that she offered refunds, but no one asked yet. They're complaining about the money. yeah, fucking hell. I'm looking at this Patience Xena's video. I don't really have time. I need to put food on. What was she like concluding with?
For them along the way. I've only spotted a few trans people responding to all of this. One said, "Where do you live? I'd love to exercise my gun to your head." Oh yeah, that's definitely not going to prove her point at all about why she'd feel safer without you
Interesting how this wasn't mentioned in jammidodger's video.
included. Another one said, "As a trans woman, this is fine. Believe it or not, everyone in the comments, trans women are very respectful and are happy to support women's spaces, even if we are not involved."
Wait, listen. Base as fuck. True. I'm exactly the same. If a female space isn't suitable for me, a trans woman, then fair enough. I'm fine with that. Go ahead. Exclude me.
Involved. We have empathy. Well, some of you do. Some of you are getting events shut down or suing people for not including you. But we do appreciate those of you who do have empathy. Here's my take on all of this. I think that Natalee should refund all the trans activists and allies who donated and are unhappy with her choice.
True, based.
I think it's the ethical thing to do because they donated under the impression that this gym was going to be doing one thing and it's now become apparent that it's going to be doing something completely different. She's hardly going to take a hit anyway from giving them back their donations, considering they likely donated a very tiny portion. So yes, give them their money back. If GoFundMe lets people do that, I don't really know much about GoFundMe, but if it lets people do it, then she should absolutely refund them. If she wants a single-sex space, it's her money, her company, and she can do as she pleases. And the women who want that will support it. If you disagree with her choice, the beautiful thing is that 99.9% of the gyms in the UK are unisex and allow everyone to come in and use them. So this one tiny gym in London is really not affecting your life whatsoever. I think it's extremely authoritative.
Haha, True, yeah, we have to make an hour, 12-minute long video about it. Scolding this person. Oh my god. Okay, this person is smart. They get a subscribe, well done.
To not allow people to have freedom of association. Unless people are segregating themselves so that they can congregate and plot violence to harm other groups or something, people should really just be allowed to have freedom of association and be allowed the right to be amongst the people of their choosing. Not everything has to be inclusive, not everything has to cater to everyone. I understand that some people think that trans women are women, but there are quite clearly a lot of people who don't agree with that view. So let those who don't share your view have their space. You say you hate TERFs anyway, so why do you want to be amongst them? And also, if women want to be in a female-only space, why is that such a problem? If women just simply want to be around other females, I don't understand why that's such a huge issue. Even if having trans women at this gym posed zero threat whatsoever to the women at the gym, even if there was no risk at all of having them there, I still think women should be allowed to just have a female-only space if they want one. What is so wrong with that? Why should safety be the only reason why you are allowed to just have your own thing? I just think that all this inclusivity stuff now is starting to get a little bit over the top. I personally think this whole drama was completely inevitable. The goals of trans activists have always been clashing with women's rights and feminists for some time now, and this is just another example of that clash. But anyway, do let me know what you think about all of this. Do you think she deserves the backlash that she's getting, or do you think she made the right choice? I would love to.
Okay, I need to watch this whole video at some point. I agree with her. Oh my god, Abba and Preach talked about this as well. Jesus, I might have to follow up. I might have to follow up with some smart people that actually know what the fuck they're talking about. But yeah, this patient Xena person, from what little I've seen of this, seems pretty smart. I agree with this. And hey, we got a positive trans comment. Listen, as much as there might be a trans fuckwit involved in this, you can also find trans people who understand and aren't losing their shit over this. You know what I mean? So there's actually other trans people out there, believe it or not, who don't feel like they're entitled to female spaces when they're male. That maybe women should have the odd space. I don't know, man. I don't know. Anyway, yeah. This video is 1,000 times better than jammidodger's video.